Chapter 3097 3097 Attribute of Good Luck. Chapter 3097 3097 Attribute of Good Luck. 3097 Attribute of Good Luck. It's too chaotic here. Senior brother will bring you to a quieter place. Zheng Tongfeng smiled. He brought Ling Han to the elevator, and brought them to level 1 of the basement. Elevator, something else powered by electricity. Ling Han nodded. No wonder the rise of demonic beasts had caused such a huge upheaval to humanity. Because humans relied too much on electricity, once the power plant was destroyed, the entire city would completely stop working. Basement 1 was really quiet. There were private rooms here, and there was a beautiful woman with a superior temperament standing at the door of each private room. She didn't have heavy makeup on, and her clothes weren't revealing at all. However, her tight dress completely outlined her curves, making one's blood rush faster. "Welcome, young masters!" A beautiful woman with an elegant aura immediately came forward and bowed to the two of them. Looking downwards from her neck, one could see her snow-white breasts bulge through her collar. However, this scene only lasted for a moment, and it made one feel a sense of regret at its disappearance. Zheng Tongfeng couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He was not just young-looking, he was indeed only 20 years old. He was in the prime of his youth, and a little teasing could make him lose his composure. "Invite your lady boss over," he said, his gaze fixed on the chest of the elegant beauty. "Yes, young master." The beauty bowed again and turned to leave. Her small butt was tightly wrapped in fabric, and she looked flirtatious with the swaying of her hips. Although she was new here, she knew that the people who could enter this place were definitely major patrons of the casino, so she didn't dare to neglect them at all. Soon, a woman with a voluptuous figure walked over. "Yo, isn't this young Master Jing? Forgive me for not welcoming you from afar." This woman walked over, swaying her voluptuous hips. Her slender waist and ample behind formed a sharp contrast. Coupled with her long legs, she was really capable of causing a nosebleed. In particular, her dress had a high-cut slit at the side. When she walked, a snow-white thigh was revealed, revealing her beautiful curves. It was so fair that it was dazzling. Zheng Tongfeng's eyes suddenly lit up as he scanned the woman greedily. After a while he said, "Sister Yang, you're really flattering me. I'm just a small fry. How can I be worthy of you coming over to welcome me from afar? This is—" Sister Yang looked towards Ling Han. She bit her red lips, and her charming eyes were like water. She truly was captivating without even attempting to. Ling Han smiled faintly. Ling Han. He had seen too many beauties in the Genesis world, and there was no lack of seductive women among them. But had he ever been tempted? Sister Yang couldn't help but be surprised. She was very confident in her looks and figure. Any upright gentleman would be tempted by her. At the very least, they would blush, and their hearts would race. They wanted to look at her, but they didn't dare to. However, this young man in front of her was too calm. In his eyes, it was like she was just empty air. However, she naturally wouldn't show her thoughts. She smiled and said, "This is young Master Ling's first time here. I will definitely treat you well." She invited Ling Han and Zheng Tongfeng into a private room, and a beautiful woman immediately brought over fine wine and fruits. "Sister Yang, let me have some words with you." Zheng Tongfeng waved at Sister Yang. "Yo, what's the matter? Why are you being so mysterious?" Sister Yang smiled as she walked out of the private room with Zheng Tongfeng. "Sister Yang, junior brother Ling is the future Tao child of our ancient Tao sect. Lord Sect Master dotes on him very much, and even bestowed him with a Meridian guiding fruit. You have to know that he has only joined our sect for less than 10 days, Zheng Tongfeng said. Sister Yang's beautiful eyes couldn't help but light up, and her small mouth opened slightly, revealing a row of snow-white teeth. This was an extremely charming sight. Zheng Tongfeng felt a ball of fire ignite in his chest. He wished he could pounce on this coquettish beauty, but he could only think of this in his heart. Not only was this beauty an elite of 6 Meridians, but it was also said that the person behind her was a king tier of 11 meridians. To say nothing of him, even Li Changdan couldn't afford to offend her. Otherwise, how could Sister Yang be safe and sound all this while, with her being such a beautiful woman and having such a profitable business? So, Sister Yang, why don't you make a killing off him? Xing Tongfeng said with a smile. Sister Yang also giggled. You're really bad. You are screwing over your own people. Isn't it because I like Sister Yang? Xing Tongfeng said as he stretched out his hand, wanting to take advantage of her. However, Sister Yang twisted her delicate body and dodged it. She giggled and said, All right. I'll remember this favor. I'll give you a 10% commission, all right? Zheng Tongfeng nodded. If Sister Yang was willing to sleep with him for a night, he would definitely not want anything else. However, even if Sister Yang was the one to offer it, he wouldn't have the guts to do so. That would really be asking for death. A beautiful dealer came into the room. She smiled sweetly at Ling Han and asked, Young Master Ling, what do you want to play? Ling Han smiled faintly and said, I don't have a single cent, so I can't play at all. It's fine. Sister Yang said that young Master Ling's identity is special, and his credibility is completely trustworthy. She gave young Master Ling a quota of 100,000 ancient Dao coins and 100 jade seeds. The beauty said. Ancient Dao coins were the currency issued by the ancient Dao sect, and were used by ordinary people. However, jade seeds were commonly used worldwide. Everyone knew the value of this thing. Here, these are your chips. The silver ones can only be exchanged for ancient Dao coins, while the golden ones can be exchanged for jade seeds. The beautiful woman pushed the chips of 2 colors over to Ling Han. Ling Han thought for a moment, and said, Then let's play dice, and compare the value we roll. He had a guess in his heart that needed to be verified. Okay. The beautiful dealer took out some dice, and placed them on the table. Young Master Ling, how much are you betting? 1,000 ancient Dao coins. Ling Han searched for a while, and then tossed out a silver coin. This was also the smallest face value. The beauty nodded. Young Master Ling, please go ahead. According to the rules of the casino, the one with the bigger value wins. If the value is the same, the dealer wins. Ling Han picked up the dice, and casually tossed them out. One of them was actually 1, and the other was 2. This was practically the smallest value there could be. The beauty revealed a smile. She would win as long as she didn't throw 2 dice with a value of 1 point. Putting aside the fact that she was well trained, even a completely ordinary person would have a 90% chance of winning. She picked up the dice and tossed them. The 2 dice began to spin. The dice became slower and slower, and they were about to stop. The 2 dice rotated at different speeds, so one of them stopped first. Just as it was about to stop on 6 points, for some reason, it moved slightly and became 1 point. The beauty was stunned. She had actually made a mistake? It's fine, as long as the second dice isn't the same value. However, things did not go as planned. When the second dice stopped, it was clearly a 3, but for some reason, it moved again and became 1. This 2 ones, of course, lost to 3 points. Why, young Master Ling is really lucky to have won the match right off the bat, the beauty said reluctantly, her heart filled with confusion. Ling Han smiled. He had guessed correctly. The luck attribute had taken effect. Chapter 3098 Big Win. Chapter 3098 Big Win. 3098 Big Win. In the Genesis world, everyone with a ball of light in their minds had their own unique traits. For example, Ling Han's natural talent in alchemy was extraordinary, Ning Haixin had an extremely strong affinity, and Wang Qianhe was extremely lucky. And after Ling Han obtained the power of the entire Genesis world and the entire void, all of these attributes were also obtained by him. The Genesis world and the void were both contained within the Divine Stone, and since it was called a Divine Stone, it definitely wouldn't just give birth to Ling Han, right? Thus, Ling Han guessed that these abilities of his should be usable. Of course, he couldn't guarantee it, so he had to give it a try. 2,000. he pushed out another chip. In the end, he got 5 points, while the beauty only got 3 points. The gambling continued. No matter how good or bad Ling Han's luck was, he would always have 1 or 2 points more than his opponent. Finally, the beautiful woman threw out 2 sixes, and the dealer took all. However, Ling Han had suddenly lowered the stakes, causing her to feel even more depressed after winning than if she had lost. After completely proving that he possessed the luck attribute, Ling Han began to bet his golden chips. Soon, the beautiful woman lost so badly that her hands trembled. Jade seeds were priceless. 1 jade seed was enough to buy her. And now, she had already lost over 100 jade seeds. How could she not break out in a cold sweat? Meng Meng, take a rest first. I'll do it. Sister Yang appeared. She had a smile on her pretty face, but there was killing intent in her eyes. All right, this Jianfang actually dared to lie to her. How was this an innocent boy? He was simply pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. His gambling skills were too brilliant. Ling Han had only lost small amounts of money, but he had won big bets. If one were to say that he was not an elite gambler, who would believe it? Jianfang also followed her in. He looked at the pile of chips in front of Ling Han with a face full of surprise, and instantly felt a million curses run through his heart. Fuck, what's going on? The staff of the casino were all professionals. How could they not be able to play better than a young man? Ling Han nodded and smiled. Sure. Actually, he didn't have any gambling skills and relied entirely on luck. The key was that his luck was so good that he could just ignore everyone else. It wouldn't make a difference whoever the dealer was. How about we change the gambling method? Sister Yang smiled. Sure. Ling Han didn't mind. They switched to playing Pai-Geo. After a brief introduction of the rules, the game began. A moment later, cold sweat broke out on Sister Yang's fair forehead. At first glance, they had gambled 10 rounds, and both sides had won 5 rounds each. However, Ling Han had only lost a small amount of money, and every round he won was a huge profit. Thus, even though the number of wins and losses was clearly the same, he had still won a few hundred jade seeds. Sister Yang could not hold on any longer. She knew that she had met a true elite. Absolutely. She didn't even know how she lost. She could only attribute it to luck. Luck was indistinct. Could it be taken seriously? Thus, it could only be said that Ling Han's gambling skills were so superb that she could not even tell how he had won. I'm a little tired, she said. Young Master Ling is really good at gambling. Why don't we call it a day? The sun is about to rise. I also want to have a good rest. For women, staying up too late is too harmful to the body. Ling Han didn't say anything in objection. If he continued to gamble, the entire casino might be lost to him. If that happened, whether or not he could walk out of here alive would be a problem. After all, he was too weak now. He nodded, put away his chips, and left. When he passed by Jianfang, he smiled and said, "Thank you, Senior Brother Jing." Then he left. As expected. Sister Yang looked at Jianfang, her gaze sharp and filled with killing intent. How much did the casino lose that night? Nearly 700 jade seeds. This was an astonishing amount of wealth. And all of this was caused by Jianfang. He actually said that Ling Han was a fat sheep that had come to deliver money. Gift your head. Jianfang, this matter won't be settled so easily. Jianfang, on the other hand, was about to cry. How could he have thought that a person who had popped out of a rock not only knew how to gamble, but was also so proficient in gambling that he defeated the casino? He was not afraid of Sister Yang. Although he was a little weak, he was still a disciple of the ancient Tao sect. The other party would not dare to be rough. However, the problem was that the real owner of this casino was Gu Tang. Who was Gu Tang? The third elder of the ancient Tao sect. If Jianfang offended Gu Tang, he wouldn't even know how he would die. He didn't know how he walked out, but when he sat down on the street, he was drenched in a cold sweat. Go back and ask Li Changdan for help. This was his idea. Now that something had happened, he naturally couldn't ignore it. Yes, go back quickly and ask Li Changdan to mediate the issue. While Xingtong Feng was hurriedly looking for Li Changdan to be a mediator, Ling Han had already redeemed his chips and returned to the ancient Tao sect. This was the first time he had seen a jade seed. It was only the size of a soybean and looked like a beautiful piece of jade that had been smashed. One jade seed was naturally very small, but 700 of them added together were still quite heavy. Ling Han asked the casino for a cloth bag. As if he was doing manual labor, he only managed to move it back after some effort. His power was truly too weak. Ling Han only rested for a moment, and the sun had already come out. He hurriedly went to practice his fist technique. His first meridian was once again greatly unblocked. According to Sun Jianfang, two people might have both opened up their meridians, but there was still the term width. In numerical terms, if a person's meridian width was 1, and the other was 100, it would also be filled with power. How big would the difference between the two be? This was the foundation. Ling Han naturally had to open his meridian to the extreme, and only then would he open the second one. Otherwise, rashly coveting progress would only make him regret it in the future. Half an hour later, Ling Han stopped. The time to cultivate had already passed, so there was no point in cultivating any further. This time, some impurities were expelled from his body, but compared to a few days ago, it was much less. This meant that his physique had improved quite a bit, so it wouldn't be as violent anymore. I really have to thank Xingtong Feng. When I was lacking money, he sent it to me. Ling Han smiled. When his strength increased, he would definitely thank Xingtong Feng properly. Now I can construct the three elements formation and refine the meridian guiding pill. Money, his biggest problem, had already been solved, so Ling Han decided to make some better formation foundations. He didn't want to treat refining meridian guiding pills as a one-shot deal. The best material for the formation foundations was earth element iron, which was currently the strongest material known. It had excellent toughness, and was resistant to heat and cold. This material was very expensive. It had been used on battleships in the past, but now it was used to forge cold weapons. In the hands of cultivators, this material could unleash incomparably terrifying power. Ling Han went to the small town to purchase it. The three elements formation was very simple, and only required 3 formation foundations. Thus, he needed very little earth element iron. He had bought this material from a weapon shop. An amount that was just the size of his fist alone cost him 30 jade seeds. It was very expensive. Chapter 3099 Refining the Meridian Guiding Pill. Chapter 3099 Refining the Meridian Guiding Pill. 3099 Refining the Meridian Guiding Pill. Earth element iron was extremely strong and resistant to heat and cold, so it was extremely difficult to forge it. Thankfully, all things had their weaknesses. The greatest weakness of earth element iron was a kind of acid. Immerse it in this acid for just 1 day, and the earth element iron would become very soft. By then, it would be very easy to mold it into various shapes. And it would naturally be no issue to inscribe patterns in it as well. Very quickly, the earth element iron had been divided into 3 portions and molded into the shapes that Ling Han required. The next step was the most crucial, and that was to carve formation patterns in them. The formation foundations of this 3 elements formation were easier to construct. However, if one were to go any higher, it was reportedly useless to simply carve formation patterns. One also had to be able to draw upon the terrain and heavenly might. It was incomparably profound. There was no need for Ling Han to worry about this for the time being. He had completed the formation foundations, and the rest was simple, and that was just pill refinement. He returned to the ancient Tao sect and looked at the refinement process of the meridian guiding pill in detail. He was already at least 90% confident that he would succeed. To an alchemy prodigy, this was just a slight change in alchemy techniques. It was not a big deal. Indeed, the meridian guiding pill was a very simple pill recipe. Ling Han arrived alone at the place he had chosen previously. He inserted the 3 formation foundations, and then piled up some jade seeds. In just an instant, boom, the 3 formation foundations all lit up. Formations were a means of mobilizing the power of heaven and earth. An epiphany rose in Ling Han's heart. In a sense, the principles of the formations in the Genesis world were the same as in this place. It was just that the specific details were different. Since jade seeds were called seeds, they were naturally not big. Each of them was about the size of a soybean. As the formation activated, each of them seemed to be burning, emitting a dense aura. After the jade seeds burned for a while, heaven and earth finally reacted. Boom! A powerful force surged and turned into a silver furnace. How amazing! Ling Han was astounded. This was completely different from the alchemy of the Genesis world. Without hesitation, he immediately threw the Meridian guiding fruit into the silver furnace. The furnace was clearly formed from energy, but at this moment, it seemed to have solidified, and could contain the Meridian guiding fruit without it falling through the bottom. What Ling Han needed to do next was to throw out and retrieve the jade seeds in order to control the fire. To an alchemist, what was the most important and most basic skill? It was fire control. Therefore, although the specific methods were different now, the logic was the same. Ling Han alternated between adding jade seeds and retrieving them again. One moment, he would take a seed from the first formation foundation and place it on the second, and the next moment, he would take a seed from the second and third formation foundations and place it on the first formation foundation. About an hour later, the jade seeds had burned completely. On the surface, there were only a few cracks, but with a slight pinch, they would disintegrate into powder. Clap! 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 7 pills fell from the sky. Ling Han shot forward and caught all 7 pills. He broke into a smile. The pill recipe says that as long as you can refine pills, you can refine 3 to 10 pills in a single furnace. These 7 pills of mine can be considered a pass. This wasn't just a passing grade. Very few people could successfully refine Meridian guiding pills on their first try, and even famous formation alchemists could only produce 7 or 8 pills. 10 was only theoretically the largest number possible. Ling Han was the alchemy emperor. He had been in the past, and he was still the alchemy emperor now. Ling Han put away the alchemical pills, feeling very satisfied. If he were to sell them, he would be able to trade one for at least 1,000 jade seeds. The effect of the Meridian guiding pill was much better than the Meridian guiding fruit. Therefore, if the Meridian guiding fruit could be sold for 100 jade seeds, it would not be too much to multiply the price for the Meridian guiding pill, right? Ling Han returned to his residence, and thought to himself, how should I sell the Meridian guiding pill? For the current him, it was a little like the winds howling around the highest peaks. He had just won 700 jade seeds. If others knew that he sold 7 Meridian guiding pills, wouldn't it be equivalent to asking others to rob him? The key problem was that he was too weak. That's right! He turned on his optical computer. Wang, the image of a beautiful girl appeared. Is there an auction house here? Ling Han asked. I'm sorry, but the wide area network has been destroyed. We can't check the main server. The optical computer girl replied. However, there's an anonymous black market here. Perhaps it can meet your requirements. Oh, bring up the information. Ling Han nodded. The optical computer brought up the information. Ling Han looked at it carefully, and a look of contemplation appeared on his face. This black market should have been initially set up by the ancient Tao sect's disciples. At that time, some disciples had gone adventuring outside and obtained some treasures, but they didn't want others to know, so they used this kind of method of trading while keeping their identities secret. As time passed, more and more people adopted this method. Moreover, it gradually grew and gained a fixed location for transactions. In black market transactions, one had to have their own eyes. If they bought fake goods, they would definitely not be able to find the seller to return them. It's on the west side of Haiping Mountain. If I go a little further west, that's the territory of the demonic beasts, Ling Han muttered. This place was truly remote. Should I go? Ling Han hesitated slightly before deciding to go. He wanted to buy a spirit-gathering formation. The so-called spirit-gathering formation was used to extract the power from jade seeds and amplify the cultivation speed of a cultivator. However, the method to create the formation foundations for the spirit-gathering formation could not be found in the optical computer. Only the formation alchemists could be found, and there were restrictions on its usage. It would break after being filled with jade seeds a few times. If one still needed to use it, he could only buy it again. Ling Han prepared a cloak and a new set of clothes for himself. Then, when the night had fallen, he headed west. The black market only opened at night, from midnight until around 3 o'clock. The distance was about 15 kilometers, but the mountain path was rugged and not easy to walk on. Fortunately, Ling Han's physique had been greatly enhanced in the past few days, and his physical power was much stronger than that of ordinary people. After walking 15 kilometers in one breath, he was only panting and sweating from exhaustion, and it had not reached the point that he wanted to sprawl out and rest. He could not help but feel a little emotional. It was only 15 kilometers. If it was in the past. Forget it, let's not talk about the past. That is a completely different world. He changed into his new clothes in the bushes, and put on a cloak and covered his face. Then, he walked out and continued forward. Before long, he arrived at the black market. Although this was a marketplace, it didn't have any signboards. It was just a huge rocky field with many people sitting cross-legged on it. In front of each of them was a piece of cloth with items for sale. Some people had lamps beside them, so they could be seen clearly. Some people didn't have lamps prepared, so the buyer could only rely on the moonlight to look at the goods. Otherwise, they would have to bring their own lamps. Ling Han also walked over and found a secluded place to sit down. Then, he took out a pill bottle and placed it in front of him. He closed his eyes and rested. He needed to conserve his energy. He still had to practice his fist technique tomorrow morning. There were many people who came to the black market. Very quickly, someone came to Ling Han's stall and asked, "What medicine are you selling?" Chapter 3100 Competition. Chapter 3100 3100 Competition. 3100 Competition. The Meridian Guiding Pill, Ling Han said calmly. Are you serious? The man was wearing a goat mask, and his face could not be seen clearly. However, one could tell from his physique that he was a slender man. His current expression was not visible, but judging from his tone, it should be filled with surprise. Meridian guiding pills could be said to be extremely popular. It was said that some forces did not even use jade seeds when conducting transactions, but instead used meridian guiding pills. Was there a need to sell it on the black market? The man was skeptical. Everyone knew that there were many fake goods on the black market. How could he guarantee that this was real? Let me see, he said. Ling Han nodded and said, Sure. The goat-masked man picked up the bottle and pulled out the cork. After smelling it, he couldn't help but reveal an excited expression. It seemed to be the real deal. He immediately looked left and right as if he was a thief. To obtain the meridian guiding fruit in the ancient Tao sect? It was difficult. Even a prodigy like Li Changdan could only get one meridian guiding fruit every 2 years. It was even more difficult for others. Many people had not even gotten a single meridian guiding fruit since they joined the sect. As for the meridian guiding pill, it was even rarer because no one knew how to refine pills. It wasn't that no one had tried it before, but being tempered by the force of heaven and earth, the ingredients would only turn into charcoal. Alchemy required natural talent. The goat-masked man did have some status. When he had been adventuring outside, he had once bought a meridian guiding pill at a high price. He had smelled and consumed it before. Therefore, he was certain that the smell was genuine. Of course, it was also possible that Ling Han had used a bottle that had once contained the meridian guiding pill to deceive him. He did not immediately say that he wanted to buy it, but he was also afraid that it would be discovered by others. Thus, he acted like he was a thief. He poured out the pill. There was only a green alchemical pill inside, emitting a faintly bittersweet smell. It was real. It was definitely real. The goat-masked man was now certain that this was the real deal. How much? He asked, his voice trembling slightly. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, 150 jade seeds. He had originally wanted to price it at 200 jade seeds, but after thinking about it, the people here probably didn't have such assets, so he decided to lower the price slightly. In any case, he already made a huge profit of 150 jade seeds. Who asked him to be the Alchemy Emperor? It was like that in the Genesis world, and it was the same here. I'll buy it! The goat-masked man was overjoyed when he heard this. The Meridian guiding pill he had bought previously had cost him more than 200 jade seeds, and it had drained him of all his assets. And this was including the great harvest he had obtained from the ancient sites, added with an ancient artifact that he had excavated to trade for it. 150 jade seeds. He had really made a killing. You can only consume it yourself. If you sell it to someone else, then you don't have to buy medicine from me in the future, Ling Han said calmly. He was not a fool that he would allow others to resell pills and earn an exorbitant profit. The goat-masked man was stunned. Brother, you know how to refine pills? Ling Han nodded and said, My name is Han Lin. In the future, on the 1st, 11th, and 21st of every month, I might come here. If you want to buy alchemical pills, you can come and take a look. All right. The goat-masked man hurriedly nodded. He leaned over and whispered, My name is Jianfang. If you encounter any trouble in the sect in the future, feel free to look for me. He wanted to befriend Ling Han. Formation alchemists were extremely rare. Otherwise, why would he announce his real name? However, he knew that what Ling Han had revealed was definitely a fake name. If the ancient Taoist sect had produced a formation alchemist named Han Lin, how could he not have heard of him? All right. Ling Han nodded. He accepted Jianfang's jade seeds. Jianfang was just about to leave when he discovered that Ling Han had taken out another bottle and placed it on the ground. Curious, he asked, Brother Han, what alchemical pill is this? The Meridian guiding pill, Ling Han said calmly. Pooh! Jianfang spluttered. What? Another Meridian guiding pill? No one disliked having too many Meridian guiding pills, and it was the same for the king tiers of 11 Meridians. This was because the more Meridians that were opened, the more difficult it would be to sense new Meridians. To say nothing of one Meridian guiding pill, even 10 or 20 wouldn't be too much. Jianfang had only achieved 7 Meridians, and he was still 5 Meridians away from reaching 12 Meridians. Even if his luck exploded, he would still need 5 Meridian guiding pills to reach his peak. Therefore, his eyes immediately turned red with excitement. I'll buy it, he said resolutely, not bothering to distinguish the authenticity of the alchemical pill. However, Ling Han shook his head and said, Each person is limited to buying one. Jianfang was furious. How could there be such a rule? It wasn't easy for him to get such an opportunity. The people around him had not noticed them, but Ling Han had actually limited that each person was only allowed to buy one. I'll buy 2, he pleaded. Ling Han remained unmoved. Since he was the Alchemy Emperor, he naturally had his own rules. Jianfang thought for a moment, and decided to find someone to help him buy this pill. He really did it. He walked to the side and said to someone, Brother, I'll give you 160 jade seeds. Go there and buy that bottle. It's only 150 jade seeds. The extra 10 jade seeds will be your commission. How about that? 10 jade seeds was already a huge sum of money, so that person was naturally moved. He turned to look at him. Could this be a conspiracy? That person has some old grudges with me. I'm afraid that he'll recognize my voice, so I'll have to trouble you, Jianfang said. He really lied very easily. All right. That person agreed. In any case, it was no loss to him. That person went over and said, 150 jade seeds? That's right. Ling Han nodded. I'll buy it, the man said, and looked at Jianfang. Yang hurriedly took out a bag and handed it over. His heart was filled with apprehension, afraid that Ling Han would refuse. However, Ling Han accepted the bag. He didn't mind Yang's petty tricks, but he threw the pill bottle to the person who was purchasing it for him. He was the one who had set the rule, so it naturally couldn't be broken. You can only consume it yourself. You can't sell it to others, he said, emphasizing this rule. That person took the pill bottle, and originally wanted to give it to Yang, but out of caution, he asked, "What pill is this?" "The Meridian guiding pill," Ling Han said casually. At the side, Yang almost stomped his feet in fury. He really wanted to shut Ling Han up. What? That person was shocked, and he hurriedly opened the bottle to take a sniff. He immediately became excited. This really was a Meridian guiding pill. "Give it to me!" Yang hurriedly stretched out his hand. That person turned his body to the side and dodged him. "Aren't you a man of your word?" Yang said balefully. "This is the Meridian guiding pill. You deceived me first, and you still want me to keep my word?" That person sneered, and threw out a bag. "Here, I'll return your jade seeds." As long as one had not reached 12 meridians, who did not need the Meridian guiding pill, wanting him to give up on this with just 10 jade seeds? What a joke. "This is not our agreement," Yang said coldly. "Hand over the item, or I won't be polite." This was the Meridian guiding pill. How could he give up? Chapter 3101 3101 Rules of the Black Market. Chapter 3101 3101 Rules of the Black Market. 3101 Rules of the Black Market. The man sneered and said, "The black market only allows business. You are not allowed to use force. Do you want to die?" Yang couldn't help but feel stifled. After the development of the black market, there were all kinds of rules. Fighting and causing trouble were strictly prohibited. Anyone who disobeyed would be ganged up on by the masses. Although Yang was at 7 meridians, and had a grandfather at 11 meridians, he didn't dare to act so recklessly. He could only hatefully pick up the bag on the ground. Since the other party knew that it was a Meridian guiding pill, it was clearly impossible for him to take it back. "At least you know what's good for you," that person said coldly. Ling Han took out a third bottle, and placed it in front of him. "Hey, what kind of medicine is this?" the man asked. "Meridian guiding pill." "Sell it to me." That person was pleasantly surprised. It was only 150 jade seeds per pill. Even if he didn't use it himself, he could still turn around and resell it for a high price. What a fool. What a huge fool. Ling Han shook his head and said, "Each person is limited to a single purchase." "Hey, are you an idiot? In any case, you're selling medicine. Isn't it the same who you sell it to?" that person shouted. Ling Han glanced at him and said, "Since it's my medicine, I can sell it to whomever I want. Do I need you to tell me what to do?" "You!" That person was furious. He pointed at Ling Han, and couldn't help but want to attack. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "You dare to make a move here? Do you want to die?" The man was stunned. These were the words that he had used with Yang just now. He didn't expect to receive retribution so quickly. "Ha ha!" Yang burst into laughter. This was too satisfying. That person looked at Ling Han coldly and asked, "Are you really not selling?" Ling Han smiled and said, "You do indeed need medicine, but it's not the Meridian guiding pill you need, but medicine for your ears. There's obviously something wrong with your hearing. There's something wrong with his brain as well," Yang said unhurriedly as he added another stab. That person trembled with anger and said coldly, Good, good, good. You're really bold. I've already remembered your voice. As long as I find your voice somewhere else, I'll teach you a lesson." Ling Han deliberately hugged himself. "I'm so scared." It had been many years since he had been threatened like this, and it gave him a sense of novelty. "Just you wait." That person turned around and left. Ling Han shook his head. Both of them had only bought a Meridian guiding pill, but why was the difference between them so great? What? There's a Meridian guiding pill here? The commotion from before was a little loud, and it immediately attracted the attention of the people around them. Sell it to me! No, sell it to me! There was not enough to go around, which immediately caused a commotion. First come, first served. Each person is limited to buying one, Ling Han said. I'm the first. I'm the first. Because the black market had its own rules, no one dared to mess around. These rules had been established for a long time, and no one dared to break them. Therefore, although the Meridian guiding pill was very tempting, no one dared to break the rules, cut in line, or use force. After selling a total of 6 bottles, Ling Han took out the 7th bottle and said, "This is the last one. I offer 160 jade seeds. Sell it to me." Someone took the initiative to raise the price. "I offer 170. 180. This seemed to have become an auction, and everyone raised their offers. However, Ling Han shook his head and said, "I'll sell as many of my medicines as I want. I won't accept any bargaining, and I won't raise the price either." He sold the 7th Meridian guiding pill to the next person in line. 150 jade seeds, no more, no less. Some people secretly called Ling Han a fool. Wasn't this simply refusing money? However, some people admired Ling Han. In the present day, there were not many people who could adhere to their principles. Ling Han dusted off his behind and stood up. He had already earned enough jade seeds, and it was time to spend them. He scanned the stalls one after another. There were indeed many strange things here. Most of them were damaged weapons. It was said that they had been dug out from ancient ruins and had once possessed immeasurable power. However, because they were damaged now, they could no longer unleash their power. However, in terms of sharpness, they were much better than what the current craftsmanship could produce, and their sturdiness far exceeded that of earth element iron. Ling Han suppressed his curiosity. He wanted to find the spirit-gathering formation first. If his own strength was insufficient, what would it matter if he had a powerful weapon? Ling Han had always firmly believed that his own strength was the true path to take and the foundation for everything else. There really was a spirit-gathering formation here, and Ling Han inquired about the price. The asking price was 20 jade seeds. Was this cheap? Not cheap at all. 1 jade seed was enough to buy a slave. 20 jade seeds was definitely a huge sum of money. Moreover, this spirit-gathering formation only had 7 formation foundations. As for the materials, they were extremely crude as they only had to be inscribed in ordinary steel. However, it wasn't as if there was nothing special about it. Ling Han could sense a faint energy emanating from the formation foundations and from the formation patterns carved in them. According to the seller, each spirit-gathering formation could be used about 3 times before the formation foundations would collapse. When using it, one had to fill in 10 to 100 jade seeds at a time. The more jade seeds there were, the better the effect. Ling Han thought for a moment, and bought 9 spirit-gathering formations. It wasn't that he didn't want to buy a few more, but that the seller only had 9 available for sale. The mission was completed, and Ling Han left. He still had many jade seeds in his possession, but all of them needed to be used for cultivation. He couldn't waste them. After returning to the sect, he found a place to change his clothes before returning to his residence. He rested for a short while, and then it was time that the sun rose. Ling Han stood up and began to practice his fist techniques. Huan Shui also woke up very early. She had to prepare breakfast for Ling Han. After she was done, she went to the courtyard to watch Ling Han practice his fist techniques. Half an hour later, Ling Han retracted his fists. The sun had already risen, and there was no longer any effect even if he continued practicing. However, he still had the spirit-gathering formation. Ling Han started to set up the formation foundations. When he saw Huan Shui standing at the side, he asked, "Huan Shui, do you want to cultivate?" "Ah?" Huan Shui was stunned. At first, she revealed a look of longing. Then, she shook her head. "I'm not cut out for martial arts." Ling Han smiled and said, "As long as you have perseverance, determination, and a bit of luck, nothing is impossible. In the future, I'll prepare a few Meridian guiding pills for you. Thank you, young master, Huan Shui said. However, she only thought that Ling Han had said it offhandedly to make her happy. What a joke! Meridian guiding pills were so precious that one was valuable enough to buy several of her. Ling Han saw this, but did not say anything else. This girl did not know that he was the Alchemy Emperor. Refining pills? It was no big deal for him. Young master, have some breakfast. Ling Han nodded. After breakfast, he activated the spirit gathering formation and continued to practice his fizz techniques. Wang, the formation channeled, and the formation patterns on each formation foundation suddenly lit up. Meanwhile, the jade seeds beside the formation foundations began to emit a dense mist, as if they were burning. This formation didn't draw on the terrain or heaven's might, so it didn't need to be set up at a specific location. The energy used to power this formation came completely from the jade seeds. Ling Han practiced his fizz technique, and immediately felt another surge of power surge into his body. Awesome! Chapter 3102 Sun Jianfang was stunned. Chapter 3102 Sun Jianfang was stunned. 3102 Sun Jianfang was stunned. Ling Han continued to punch. During this process, traces of energy surged into his body, surging through his meridian, widening it, pushing out impurities, and leaving behind some sort of mysterious energy. Hoo! Ling Han's punches became faster and faster. In fact, one could even see afterimages left behind his punches. Although the meridian opening tier is determined by how many meridians are opened, cultivation level is cultivation level, and strength is strength. The two of them cannot be confused. Two people may both be one meridian, but the width of the meridian that each person opens is different. Usually, the strength of a one meridian is about 250 kilograms. 250 kilograms of strength is already very extraordinary. For someone like that, killing a wild wolf with his bare hands would be no problem. However, the limit that can be attained is 400 kilograms of strength, which is enough to defeat a ferocious tiger. Ling Han thought to himself as he punched. His dream was to achieve 400 kilograms of strength. This way, even if his cultivation speed was a little low, as long as his power was strong enough, was there still any need to be concerned about his cultivation level? Strength was the true way to go. Everything else was meaningless. Ling Han had cultivated from his very beginning of body refining tier to heavenly venerable tier, so would Ling Han still care about something as superficial as cultivation level? He practiced from morning to noon, and finally stopped. It wasn't that he was tired. On the contrary, his essence, chi, and spirit were at their peak. However, his meridian was in pain, making him realize that if he continued to train, his meridian might break. That would be too foolish. More haste, less speed. There had to be moderation in everything. Ling Han had a good rest, took a bath, and ate a meal. Then, he came to the basement, where a meter for strength was placed. This was a very crude calculator of strength. It was very large and took up 2/3 of the available surface area. It was fixed to the ground with incomparably thick steel screws. Facing Ling Han was a black iron plate with leather wrapped around it. If he punched it, it would immediately display his level of strength. The reason why it was wrapped with leather was naturally to protect his hand. Ling Han focused, and then suddenly threw a punch. The energy in his meridians surged out majestically. Pung! His punch landed solidly. However, the dynamometer didn't vibrate at all. Instead, the numbers kept jumping and finally stopped at a number. 132 kilograms. That's all? Ling Han was slightly dissatisfied. Although he had already set aside the fact that he had once been an omnipotent heavenly venerate, after these few days of cultivation, he actually only had 100 kilograms of strength. Wasn't this a little too weak? It would be great if Wally was here. This 4-directional fist is only a simplified version. The effect definitely can't compare to that of the real fist technique. If I can deduce the real fist technique, my advancement will definitely be much faster. Ling Han sighed. However, the four-directional fists was the foundation of the ancient Tao sect. Even those elders could only learn 3 to 5 moves, so how could he possibly obtain the complete inheritance? Not only could it be used to cultivate, but it could also be used to fight enemies. It was extremely powerful. Let's try using the fist technique. Ling Han started practicing the four-directional fists, and then abruptly threw another punch. Bang! A ripple emerged on the leather, and it let out a muffled sound. The value changed again. 152, 5 kilograms. The enhancement isn't very strong, but it's solid. If I don't use the fist technique and punch continuously, my power value will fluctuate between 100 and 130. However, after using the fist technique, I can always maintain the value at around 150 kilograms. Ling Han rubbed his chin, pondering. Then how many punches can my current body allow? He began to experiment again. If he didn't use his fist technique and maintain his fastest punching speed, he could probably hit 100 times. Then, his speed would slow down. By the time he hit 300 times, he would basically have no strength left. If he were to use the fist technique, he would be able to deliver 150 punches in one go. Then, his arms would feel as if they were on fire, and he would be unable to exert any more force. If I'm fighting someone, I have to calculate my limits. I can't just focus on fighting and fall into a state of exhaustion. From the afternoon onwards, Ling Han stopped practicing his fist technique. He rested well, and then he once again began to train with all his might on the morning of the second day. His improvement was astonishingly fast. After a day, his fist strength had increased to more than 145 kilograms. The effect of the spirit gathering formation is very obvious. It made my advancement more than double. It's just that my body's strength is a little low. It's not enough to allow me to cultivate for an entire day. What he didn't know was that if someone else were to use the spirit gathering formation like him, they definitely wouldn't be able to get out of bed the next day. Ling Han's recovery speed could be considered abnormal. It was just that he hadn't completely gotten used to his current body of an ordinary person. He would subconsciously compare the present him with how he had been in the past. In that case, he would definitely think that he was far inferior to his previous self. Day after day, Ling Han's progress was astonishingly fast. By the 10th day that he had agreed on with son Jianfang, Ling Han's fist strength had already reached the 250 kilogram mark. Theoretically speaking, he could already be considered to have reached the peak of one meridian, and could now open up a second meridian. However, Ling Han did not feel at all that he had widened the Ziyang bright gastric meridian to the extreme, and felt that there was still a great deal of room for improvement. Young master, Lord Sect Master has summoned you. Huan Shui came over. Ling Han nodded. He stood up and left his rooms, heading over to where son Jianfang was. How is it? Have you sensed your meridians? Son Jianfang asked. Although 10 days was a little short, combined with the meridian guiding fruit and Ling Han's genius, it should be possible for him to sense his meridians. I sensed it, Ling Han replied honestly. Son Jianfang revealed a smile, appearing very satisfied. Even with the help of the meridian guiding fruit, to be able to sense his first meridian in 10 days was still very extraordinary. Good! 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 He pointed at the strength tester placed in the courtyard. Come, let's see how much strength you have now. Ling Han walked over and clenched his fist. Power surged in his meridian, and he did not use any fist technique. Ping, he threw a punch, and the numbers flashed. 253 kg? Son Jianfang was instantly shocked speechless. Although this little bit of power was not worth mentioning in front of him, a person who had only been born more than 10 days ago and had just sensed a meridian could actually blast out about 250 kilograms of power? Fuck, what kind of monster was this? This was already the peak of one meridian. A prodigy! Truly a prodigy! Son Jianfang could not help but sigh with emotion. He looked at Ling Han, and his gaze became even gentler. Your progress has far exceeded my expectations. He thought that Ling Han's fist strength would at most reach 50 kilograms. After all, he had only just begun. However, he was truly a little frightened now. Ling Han was able to cultivate to become 1 meridian in 10 days. Even though the higher one's cultivation level was, the slower one's progress would be, this fellow should reach 12 meridians in a year or two, right? He secretly laughed at himself for taking this for granted. The more meridians one opened, the more difficult it would be to sense new meridians. He had been through this before, so how could he not know? However, even if Ling Han could only reach 12 meridians in 5 to 10 years, this would still be extremely shocking. How long had it taken Sun Jianfang to reach the same level? A full 37 years. Chapter 3103 3103 Two Meridians. Chapter 3103 3103 Two Meridians. 3103 Two Meridians. You're very good. Sun Jianfang nodded and smiled. He raised his hand and took out another fruit. I'll give you another meridian guiding fruit. I've always been fair and just in meting out punishments and granting rewards where it's warranted. It was a pleasant surprise. Ling Han hurriedly took it. This was a gift that would make him rich, so how could he refuse? Moreover, if the meridian guiding fruit was consumed directly, the effects would be too poor, and it could only be consumed by one person, but it would be different if it was refined into the form of alchemical pills. With Ling Han's skill in alchemy, refining 6 to 8 pills would definitely not be a problem. He was contributing to the ancient Tao sect. This time, I'll give you 20 days before I conduct another inspection. Sun Jianfang waved his hand, indicating that Ling Han could leave. Wait, he spoke again. Don't let anyone know about your cultivation progress. If anyone asks, tell them that you only sensed your first meridian 20 days later. Yes. Ling Han nodded. He knew that Sun Jianfang wanted him to hide his ability. After all, humans were unpredictable, and not everyone wanted to see him mature and grow. Actually, even without Sun Jianfang's warning, Ling Han had no intention of telling anyone about his advancement if others knew all about him. How could he trick them in the future? He returned to his residence, and found the 3 elements formation foundations. Then, he ran to the place where he had refined alchemical pills. After setting up the formation, he quickly refined the meridian guiding fruit into alchemical pills. This time, there were 6 pills. It was slightly worse than the last time. Ling Han was not discouraged. The success rate of pill completion would naturally fluctuate. 1 more or 1 less pill was completely within the normal range. Only by improving his skills would he be able to further increase the success rate of the pills. This could only be done slowly. Besides, producing 6 or 7 pills in a single cauldron was already quite a lot. Because he still had quite a few jade seeds, Ling Han was not in a hurry to sell the alchemical pills in his hands. He returned to his room, and used the optical computer to further understand this world better. This computer could be seen as a neutered version of Wally. I can't let Wally know about this, Ling Han thought to himself. Otherwise, with his additional emotional function, he would definitely jump up and down in mad fury. This new world looked a little like the ancient realm. It was a vast galaxy filled with stars. The planet he was on was known as Celestial Sea Planet. It belonged to the Centaur Galaxy. There were a total of 11 planets like Celestial Sea Planet in this galaxy, and they revolved around a huge star. Life had only evolved on Celestial Sea Planet. However, as the technological development of Celestial Sea Planet reached its heyday, it had once sent detectors to other planets, and made astonishing discoveries. Ling Han saw a picture. It was a damaged building. This had caused a sensation back then. Could it be that civilizations had appeared on other planets before? However, before humans could explore further, a drastic change occurred in the heaven and earth, and this matter was completely put on hold. The problem of survival had not been solved, so how could they still be in the mood to explore the endless starry sky? People guessed that there had to be other life forms and other civilizations in the endless universe. Perhaps one day, intelligent creatures with higher civilization levels would descend on Celestial Sea Planet. According to historical records, human civilization began 3,000 years ago, but now that heaven and earth has changed drastically, many ancient buildings have appeared from underground. This means that the lifespan of human civilization is not as short as 3,000 years. But how did the civilization from 3,000 years ago get exterminated? Earthquake? Super tsunami? The bombardment of meteors from outer space? Before this, some people deduced that humans evolved from apes. Ling Han touched his face, finding it a little hard to imagine himself with a sharp mouth, monkey-like cheeks, and hairy face. How did we get here? Ling Han turned off his optical computer. He knew how he had come here, but the question was, what was the origin of that divine stone? Although Sun Jianfang said that he had brought it back from an ancient site, what about the details? It was blank. I'll have to explore all of this myself. What an interesting world. It's a pity that Wan Xing, big brother, and second brother can't come out. Otherwise, it would be so interesting to adventure in this world together. Ling Han was very well behaved. His current strength was too low, and he needed to slowly grow in secret for now. Every day, he would test his strength after completing his fist practice. From 250 kilograms, he would steadily increase. Soon, he passed the 300 kilograms mark, followed by 350 kilograms and then 400 kilograms. 400 kilograms of strength was the limit that even prodigies had to stop at. Throughout the 100-year history of the ancient Tao sect, no one had ever exceeded 400 kilograms of strength at 1 meridian. However, Ling Han was not satisfied. If he stopped here, then he could only be a so-called prodigy. But he had always pursued his limits. 400 kilograms? No way! Furthermore, Ling Han was very confident because he did not feel any pressure on his meridian, which meant that his meridian could still continue to grow wider. 450 kilograms, 500 kilograms. On the 12th day after leaving Sun Jianfang, Ling Han reached 500 kilograms of strength. This was extremely terrifying. One had to know that even an average 2 meridians would only have this bit of power. Ling Han was only in 1 meridian, yet he was comparable to a 2 meridians. How could this not be shocking? I've really reached my limit. Right now, I can already feel a dull pain in my meridian. I can't expand any further, or else I'll only explode, Ling Han said to himself. All right, I can start sensing the 2nd meridian. He chose to start practicing his fist technique early in the morning. He had to sense a new meridian, which could not be done in the spirit-gathering formation. His 1st meridian was already filled with power, so he couldn't pour in any more energy. Thus, the power that entered his body began to search for a new place to break through. However, he did not manage to find such a breakthrough for the time being. The power clashed randomly within his body, making Ling Han feel extremely uncomfortable. With a whoosh, he violently spat out a mouthful of blood, feeling an incomparably uncomfortable sensation in his chest. Fuck, this is killing me, Ling Han panted. He knew that he was a little too anxious. Cultivation definitely could not be rushed. Otherwise, it would only result in madness. I need to take my time. Ling Han adjusted his mentality, and once again began to practice the 4 directional fists. He still hadn't consumed the meridian guiding fruit, because he believed in his own ability. The energy that had rushed into his body began to clash randomly again. Ling Han cleared his mind, allowing this energy to circulate, and searching for a breakthrough point. This energy was like a small snake, slithering all over his body, and drilling into him until he felt more and more uncomfortable. However, Ling Han gritted his teeth and endured it, as if this body was not his, and he felt no pain. After experiencing so many disasters and calamities, this was no big deal for him. However, this state couldn't be sustained for too long. The energy would definitely cause damage to his body. When he was about to reach his limit, Ling Han's body trembled slightly, and an extremely relaxing feeling rose within him. Success! He smiled. This power had finally found a breakthrough. It surged into his right ring finger, traveled along his arm to his shoulder, then up his neck, and stopped at the top of his right ear. He had opened his second meridian, the Han Shaoyang 3 burning meridian. 2 meridians. Ling Han felt his entire body relax. A powerful force surged into his body, giving him a strong sense of power. Chapter 3104 Fighting a Wolf. Chapter 3104 Fighting a Wolf. 3104 Fighting a Wolf. Ling Han's strength was advancing by leaps and bounds. A few more days later, Ling Han encountered a problem. The 9 spirit-gathering formations were all broken, and his supply of jade seeds was almost used up. He was extremely poor again, but he still had 6 meridian guiding pills. Looking at the date, it happened to be the 21st today. He disguised himself a little, and went to the black market at night. A person wearing an ox head mask appeared, and said enthusiastically, "Brother Han, you are finally here." This was Nie Yang. Ling Han recognized him from his voice. Ling Han couldn't help but be surprised, and asked, "You actually recognize me?" He hadn't said anything yet. "Only you would set up your stall in such a remote corner." Nie Yang smiled and said, "How is it? Are there meridian guiding pills for sale again?" Ling Han also smiled, and asked, "You've broken through?" "Of course." Nie Yang was a little proud. He was also one of the few geniuses in the ancient Tao sect, but there were too few meridian guiding fruits, limiting his speed of advancement. Now that he had the help of the meridian guiding pill, he could naturally sense his 8th meridian easily. "You haven't cultivated to the limit yet, right? Is there such a rush?" Ling Han asked. "Brother, don't you know that the wearer knows best where the shoe pinches? This is a meridian guiding pill. Only you would actually sell it, brother." Nie Yang sighed. "You're really rich." Ling Han was also a little rueful. "Hee hee." Nie Yang laughed. Some jade seeds were exchanged with treasures he had risked his life to obtain, while others were given to him by his grandfather, who asked him to have an ancestor of 11 meridians. The latter was close to standing at the peak of this world. Ling Han didn't ask any more questions. What he needed was jade seeds. He didn't need to know about other people's matters. "It's still 150 jade seeds." Ling Han took out a bottle and placed it on the ground. "I'll buy it." Nie Yang tossed a bag to Ling Han, and then picked up the bottle on the ground. "You don't want to see if it's real or fake?" Ling Han asked with a smile. "I trust your character," Nie Yang said boldly. Ling Han nodded. This person was really worth befriending, but his taste was too unique. Last time, he had worn a goat mask, and this time it was an ox head mask. "If you get into any trouble, feel free to look for me," Nie Yang said. He didn't ask anyone else to buy another pill on his behalf, because he knew that this wasn't realistic. No one would give him the meridian guiding pill after knowing about it. With a price of 150 jade seeds for a meridian guiding pill, it naturally sold very well. In just 10 minutes, Ling Han sold 3 meridian guiding pills, but he kept the remaining 3 as he had other uses for them. Ling Han bought a few more spirit-gathering formations, and then left carefully. After such life continued for a few more days, Ling Han felt bored. He planned to go out for a stroll. Of course, it would be within the boundaries of Haiping Mountain. There were no demonic beasts here, and even if there were, they might have just mutated. They couldn't be that powerful. However, just to be safe, he still went to the town and bought a sword. It was also made of earth element iron, so it was sharp and sturdy. He carried his sword and entered the depths of the mountains. The heaven and earth had changed drastically, and the landscape had changed. There were ancient sites that emerged from the ground, and there were also tall mountains that emerged from the earth. Even the original tall mountains had changed, and there were now narrow valleys and sharp peaks. Haiping Mountain had existed since ancient times, and it was not a mountain that had appeared after the drastic changes of heaven and earth. However, there were a few more dangerous peaks on the mountain that were so tall that they jutted into the clouds. Although the ancient Tao sect occupied this mountain, no one could climb these dangerous peaks. It wasn't that the terrain was too dangerous, but that there was an inexplicable force suppressing them, preventing them from ascending. That should be due to a formation that had been set up, Ling Han guessed. He strolled slowly in the mountains, and the air was exceptionally fresh. It was said that before the change in heaven and earth, humans had entered the era of industrialization, causing great damage to nature. However, after the Great Mutation, factories turned into ruins, and the environment became better. It had to be said that this was a great irony. Ling Han deviated from the normal route, and entered into the primitive parts of nature. It had only been a little over 100 years, but these plants had undergone an outbreak of growth. Large numbers of trees that were more than 100 meters tall had appeared. They were like small mountains that blotted out the sky. Ling Han strolled along, feeling comfort like he was a dragon swimming in the sea, or a tiger returning to the depths of the mountains. After walking for a while, he felt thirsty, and found a small stream to quench his thirst. Suddenly, he felt a strong sense of foreboding. Xiao! A strong gust of wind came from behind. Ling Han clenched his fist, turned around, and threw a punch. It was a giant black wolf that was about 2 meters long. Its fur was soft and glowing, and it was originally very handsome, but now it bared its mouth full of fangs and drool flowed out, making it look extremely ferocious. Pun! This punch avoided the giant wolf's mouth, but the giant wolf's head also dodged his fist, and the two simply brushed past each other. Ling Han was astounded. His punch had actually missed. The huge wolf had missed its target and landed steadily on the ground. It was really very tall, about 1.2 meters at the shoulder, and its eyes were like light bulbs, staring fixedly at Ling Han. Ling Han beckoned with his hand, and said, "Come on!" The giant wolf was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, it began to pace around, as if it was searching for Ling Han's weakness. The wolf was a very smart animal. Being a hunter, patience was one of its strengths. "If you don't come, I will!" Ling Han laughed loudly, and charged forward. He didn't need to use a weapon to deal with a wild wolf that might have just begun to mutate. The giant wolf was forced to fight. It waved a paw, and swatted at Ling Han's head. It was huge, and the force of this swat was no paltry matter. Even if it didn't have 250 kilograms of strength, it would still have a strength of 150 to 200 kilograms. Ling Han was naturally unafraid, and exchanged blows with the giant wolf. The giant wolf immediately let out a wail as its huge body was sent flying. Ling Han sighed, and withdrew his fist. There was a bloody mark on his fist, which originated from a slice of the giant wolf's claws. In terms of power, Ling Han had the upper hand, but in terms of physique, he was inferior to the giant wolf. If only he could cultivate the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Again! He laughed heartily. In the past, he had slaughtered dragons as easily as if he was slaughtering chickens. Now, this was just an ordinary giant wolf. How could it be that he couldn't handle it? The giant wolf was in a lot of pain from this punch, but this stimulated it into madness, and it launched a counterattack at Ling Han. Ling Han fought fiercely with the giant wolf. Relying on his endless battle experience and his advantage in power, he quickly gained an absolute upper hand. You can be considered the first sacrifice. Ling Han used the 4 directional fists, and the power of each punch was stabilized at around 600 kilograms. This was too terrifying, and the giant wolf howled in pain from the impact, its spine quickly broken. "There's meat for dinner." Ling Han began to skin the wild wolf by the stream. After washing it clean, he started a fire and set up a piece of wolf meat to roast over the fire. Very quickly it was roasted until it was golden, and oil seeped out, emitting an alluring fragrance. What a pity! If only I had a spatial artifact. I could store seasonings in it, and I would be able to add seasonings too. The taste would be even better. Gee. Just as Ling Han was about to start eating, he saw a large baboon jump out, and it was continuously pointing at that piece of meat. Chapter 3105 Monkey. Chapter 3105 3105 Monkey. 3105 Monkey. A baboon was asking for food from him? Ling Han was slightly surprised. This was not the Genesis world, where it would not be strange no matter how human-like and intelligent beasts were, because even wild animals had become intelligent. This was a world that had just begun on its path of evolution. The appearance of such an intelligent animal would definitely be shocking. Seeing that Ling Han didn't respond, the baboon turned around, showing its red butt as it swayed back and forth, as if it was provoking him. Ling Han laughed loudly. He used his sword to cut off a piece of meat from the wolf's leg, and then tossed it over. The baboon hurriedly caught it. Its body was extremely agile, but this piece of meat had just been cooked through, and was extremely hot. As soon as it grabbed it, it immediately let out a strange cry. However, it was clearly a glutton and refused to let go. It kept juggling it from its left hand to its right hand, then from its right hand to its left hand. After tossing the meat back and forth dozens of times, the heat of the meat slowly subsided. Only then did the baboon grab the meat and eat it. With a bite, oil seeped out. The meat was incomparably fat and delicious. Howl! 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 The monkey was so happy that it kept jumping and eating even faster. Ling Han also began eating. He was indeed hungry. The baboon quickly finished the meat, and then extended its hand toward Ling Han. Its eyes were wide open, and it looked a little adorable, as if it was begging for more food. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Previously, he had just seen how it had been speculated that humans had evolved from apes. Then, was this his brother from the primitive ages? Take it! He threw out another piece of meat. The baboon jumped up in excitement again, and lowered its head, beginning to eat again. Its appetite was truly not small. Only after eating 4 pieces of meat did it finally stop asking Ling Han for more. Shio! It leaped up and climbed onto a tree. The leaves rustled, and it quickly disappeared from sight. Sigh, it had really forgotten Ling Han's kindness. It ran away after eating? You didn't even stay long enough to wipe your mouth. It was better not to have such a brother from the primitive ages. Strange, didn't he also obtain a powerful affinity? Why didn't it work on this monkey? Ling Han laughed in his heart. He naturally wouldn't take a monkey to heart. Seeing that the sky was also very dark by now, he decided to find a cave to stay in for the night. Right now, his strength was only equivalent to an ordinary peak stage of 2 Meridians. That could not be considered strong at all. Therefore, he naturally could not be careless. His luck was not bad, and he quickly found a cave. Furthermore, it was very dry inside. He started a fire, and simply sealed the entrance of the cave with rocks before closing his eyes to rest. The sword was placed right at his side. If any wild beasts wanted to attack at night, he would kill them immediately. The night passed peacefully. One thing had already become instinctive for Ling Han, who woke up before the sun had even risen. He pushed aside the stone at the entrance, found a flat ground, and began to practice his fizz techniques. Entering the deep mountains to train was one thing, but he also wanted to try his luck and see if he could find some precious fruits. After the great changes of heaven and earth, many new plants had appeared, such as the Meridian guiding fruit tree. In addition, many other plants would bear precious fruits which were greatly beneficial to cultivators. These plants were called precious trees and precious herbs, and the fruits they produced were called precious fruits. Of course, there were also people who called them mysterious fruits, treasured fruits, and even celestial fruits. There was a Meridian guiding fruit tree in the ancient Tao sect, and it was currently the most precious treasured tree. However, who knew if there was a second treasure tree in this vast mountain? Ling Han was practicing his martial arts when his ears suddenly twitched. He heard rustling sounds, and then saw large monkeys jump down from a tree and sit down in front of him one after another. There were at least 30 of them surrounding him. There were tall and sturdy male baboons, as well as female monkeys carrying their cubs. They surrounded Ling Han forcefully, and some were even imitating Ling Han's fizz technique. Their out-of-place appearance really made one want to laugh. Ling Han ignored them. The time he had to cultivate every day was limited, and he only treated these monkeys as if they did not exist. He only stopped after the limited time of half an hour of cultivation had ended. Squeak, squeak, squeak! These monkeys all jumped up now, as if they knew that Ling Han could not be disturbed just now. Don't tell me you're all here to eat! Ling Han couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. After that monkey had eaten the wolf meat yesterday, could it be that it had gone back to advertise, and had only brought so many companions over today? In his eyes, every monkey looked the same. It was really difficult to tell which monkey was the one from yesterday. All right, I am going to eat breakfast anyway, Ling Han said with a smile. On the basis that they were all his primitive age family, he would treat them to a meal. He began to roast the meat, and the monkeys continued to watch. A monkey was impatient by nature. When they smelled the fragrance of the meat, they began to jump up and down, and they could not help but drool. Take it! Ling Han divided the wolf meat into many portions, and after taking a portion himself, he gave the rest of the meat to the monkeys. The monkeys immediately swarmed forward, and divided the roasted meat among themselves. After eating, the monkeys dispersed. Sigh, as expected, they're a bunch of ingrates. Ling Han shook his head. He rested for a while, then slung his sword onto his back, and prepared to set off. Shwa, shwa, shwa. The leaves rustled, and a few more baboons appeared. However, they weren't empty-handed this time. Instead, they each held 2 fruits in their hands. A total of 7 monkeys placed 14 fruits in front of Ling Han. Is this for me? Ling Han was surprised. Could it be that he was wrong? These monkeys also knew how to repay kindness. Squeak, squeak. The 7 monkeys all jumped up and down, as if responding to Ling Han. Ling Han laughed loudly, and picked up the fruits. He didn't even need to put them close to the tip of his nose, and he could already smell a refreshing fragrance coming from them. He washed them cleanly, and picked one to eat first. As soon as he took a bite, a sweet juice exploded in his mouth, making all the pores on his body seem to open up. There was only one word to describe it: comfortable. Not only that, but he also felt a trace of energy surging in his meridians, which had the effect of expanding them. However, this speed was ridiculously slow, and could not be compared to when he was practicing his fizz technique. It could increase one's cultivation? Ling Han was astonished. No matter how weak it was, it still didn't require him to cultivate it himself. This boost to cultivation was completely obtained for free. Who would reject it? Precious fruit. This was also a precious fruit. Ling Han wolfed down the fruit. After finishing one fruit, he began to eat the other fruits. These fruits were all of the same type. They were the size of a fist, and were completely red in color. This fruit was really valuable. Not only was it delicious, but it could also increase one's cultivation. Even though Ling Han had already eaten his fill earlier, he still forced himself to finish all these fruits. When he consumed all 14 fruits, he discovered it was equivalent to having cultivated for another day. Ling Han couldn't help but be filled with anticipation, and asked a large monkey, "Are there any more fruits like this?" How could the baboons understand his words? They all squeaked as if they were looking at an idiot. Fuck, was he being looked down upon by a few monkeys? Ling Han pointed at the fruit cores on the ground, and then made a gesture of eating, gesturing like this so the monkeys could see what he meant. Since they were his primitive-aged brothers, they should be able to understand him, right? Chapter 3106 Old Sunday. Chapter 3106 Old Sunday 3106 Old Sunday. As expected, these monkeys really understood. A baboon walked forward. After taking a few steps, it turned around and saw that Ling Han had not moved, so it waved its left arm at him, as if signaling him to follow. Ling Han understood. It was probably taking him directly to the precious tree. All right, now he could go and pick the fruits himself. He didn't have to ask the monkeys for it. They traversed mountains and ridges, the monkeys moved nimbly, they climbed walls and trees if there were no paths ahead, but Ling Han was different. He was only slightly stronger than an ordinary person now. Going through such high-intensity exercises, he was soon panting heavily. He could only ask to stop and rest several times before they finally arrived at a valley. This valley was very hidden, mainly because the path was too difficult to travel on. Oh, that wasn't right, there wasn't any path at all. 70% of the journey required them to climb over rocky terrain and trees to pass through. This was clearly the nest of the monkeys. There were over 100 monkeys in the valley, and when they saw Ling Han coming over, they all jumped over, squeaking as they grabbed onto tree branches and swayed about, appearing to have gone wild. Ling Han, on the other hand, smiled and tried his best to appear amiable. Had these monkeys been feeding on those precious fruits, they would probably have been very strong. If he was to anger them, it really wouldn't be a joking matter if over 100 of them rushed up against him. If he, a former ultimate elite and unparalleled prodigy, was to die under the chaotic punches of these monkeys, then his reputation would truly be tarnished for tens of thousands of years. There was a fruit tree at the bottom of the valley, and it was only 8 meters tall. In the current environment, this height was really nothing out of the ordinary. However, Ling Han's attention was focused upon the fruits growing on the tree. They were all the same as the ones he had eaten before, but most of them hadn't matured. They weren't even the size of a fist, and they hadn't turned completely red. There were only a dozen or so that could be harvested, and they were all at the top of the tree. Ling Han instantly wanted to climb the tree to pick the fruits. He walked to the bottom of the tree, and just as he was about to start climbing, he suddenly felt his feet slip. Pa! He fell down solidly. Gee! The monkeys were instantly amused, and all of them grinned widely and laughed. Fuck, I was actually mocked by a group of monkeys. Ling Han patted off his behind and stood up. He was also a little puzzled. Why did he suddenly fall? The ground here wasn't very slippery. He stayed vigilant and went to climb the tree again. Pa! He slipped again and fell hard for the second time. Gee! The monkeys were easily amused, and the entire group instantly erupted into laughter. Something wasn't right. There had to be some sort of trick. Ling Han climbed to his feet. He couldn't have fallen for no reason. Someone had to be playing a prank on him. It ought to be the monkeys. He sized up the monkeys, but every one of them was quite a distance away from him. He really didn't believe that they could affect him by making a move from afar. So what's going on? Ling Han became even more careful, and further slowed down his movements. Pa! He suddenly made a move, and directly hugged the tree trunk. Let's see how you're going to cause trouble now. Ling Han climbed up the tree, but he had only climbed less than half a meter when he felt his hands suddenly go limp. Pa! He instantly slipped from the tree, and fell to the ground. She! The monkeys were amused again. Fuck! Ling Han felt depressed, like a tiger that had fallen from grace and was being bullied by a dog. In the past, he had been incredibly powerful and impressive, but now he had actually been treated as a joke by a bunch of monkeys. He felt stifled. Ha 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 ha! A burst of laughter rang out. The sound of laughter couldn't be suppressed by the squealing of the monkeys. Huh! Ling Han was stunned. Monkeys only knew how to squeal, and couldn't speak. Then who was laughing? It had to be a human. There was a human here. It had to be this person who had interfered. However, this person probably didn't have any malicious intent. Otherwise, given that he was able to exert force through the air, killing Ling Han would have been child's play for him. Senior, may I pay my respects? Ling Han stood up and bowed in all directions. Brat, do you really want to see old Sun? A voice asked. This person's surname was Sun? Ling Han smiled and said, Of course. All right, then come and find old Sun, the voice said slyly. Ling Han first looked up at the tree, but did not discover anything. He then expanded his range of search, but still did not discover anyone. They were surrounded by valley walls, and there were no caves. Where could a person hide? He finally realized that there was a spot that was different. It was covered with a pile of huge fan-like leaves, as if something was hidden within it. Ling Han walked over and asked, Senior should be here, right? However, could such a small place really hide a person? At least you're smart, brat. That voice rang out again. Clearly Ling Han was standing right beside it, yet he was completely unable to detect that this voice was coming from the pile of leaves. Elites were indeed unique. Ling Han peeled off the leaves 1, 2, and 3 leaves. The leaves were continuously being plucked away, and when there were only 3 leaves left, Ling Han took away another leaf, and couldn't help but reveal an expression of disbelief on his face. Under the pile of leaves was not a person, but a head, a monkey's head. Ling Han felt a little dizzy. Was it a monkey talking to him just now? Was it also a monkey toying with him? He looked again and saw that the monkey's body was completely inside the mountain, with only its head sticking out. It definitely didn't enter the spot by itself, because the hole at its neck was too small to allow its body to come out, and its head couldn't possibly retract into it. There might be some kind of tunnel at the other end. This monkey seemed to be bound to this mountain. Insolence! The monkey bared its teeth with a fierce expression. Brat, why aren't you kneeling when you see old son? It really was this monkey speaking. Ling Han was astonished. More than 100 years ago, the sky, seas, and stars had undergone a mutation, and a large number of ferocious beasts had gained intelligence and possessed great power. However, he had never heard of wild beasts being able to speak. Could it be that the monkey was really a human's brother from the primitive ages, so after the mutation, it could speak human language? Greetings, senior. Ling Han cupped his fists. He would not bow down to a monkey. Insignificant human. Back when Old Sons might shook the world, countless human prodigies wanted to follow Old Son, but Old Son didn't take a fancy to them at all. Now that I've given you a chance to bow before me, you actually don't want to do so. You're really infuriating, Old Son! The monkey shouted loudly. All around, the baboons were watching them from afar, seemingly in awe of this monkey. Ling Han nodded inwardly. This monkey could even speak human language, and its level of evolution was indeed very high. It was no wonder that all the other monkeys revered it. Senior, you seem to be suppressed here, he said. He had experienced so much before, and seeing this scene now, it was obvious that this monkey had been suppressed. Although only one head was revealed, its fur was golden, as if made of gold. It gave off a mighty and noble feeling. It definitely wasn't an ordinary monkey. The monkey was originally extremely furious, but upon hearing Ling Han's words, its anger seemed to fade instantly, and it became dejected. Ling Han had hit a sore spot. Humph, not even the heavens can be hidden from my eyes. How can this mountain suppress me forever? The monkey immediately became full of confidence again. In less than 10 years, I'll definitely be able to escape. Chapter 3107 3107 Cultivation Technique. Chapter 3107 3107 Cultivation Technique. 3107 Cultivation Technique. This monkey was quite pitiful. He had clearly undergone mutation, developed intelligence, and gained great power, but he was suppressed under the mountain as if he was trapped in a cage. However, he still maintained an optimistic mindset, which was truly not easy. Senior's mentality is really good, Ling Han praised. That's right. I, Old Son, am invincible among my peers, and it is destined that I will be invincible in the galaxy in the future. The monkey began to boast again, as if he was completely free of worries. He did not recall at all the fact that he was being suppressed now. How should I address Senior? Ling Han asked. The monkey thought for a moment, and shook his head. Since I haven't escaped yet, revealing Old Son's real name will damage my reputation. You can call me Monkey Sunday. His surname was Sun, and he was also a monkey. He was indeed Monkey Sunday. Ling Han chuckled and said, Should I call you Brother Monkey? This monkey's strength seemed to be very shocking. It was not a disgrace for him to call him Brother Monkey. Monkey Sun looked up at Ling Han, a little surprised. Back then, his brothers and friends had all called him Brother Monkey. Unfortunately, after that period of great chaos, how many of them were still alive now? He suddenly had an idea. Brat, shall we become sworn brothers? Become sworn brothers with a monkey? The corners of Ling Han's mouth twitched involuntarily. This was a little surreal. What is it? Are you looking down on Old Son? The monkey was enraged, and his eyes shot out a sharp light. It was extremely terrifying. Ling Han hurriedly came back to his senses. This monkey seemed to be very sensitive. Yes, it was in line with the impatient nature of a monkey, changing moods very quickly. Ling Han smiled and said, "How could that be? I was just shocked by this sudden surprise. Of course. Those who can become sworn brothers with Old Sun are all impressive people." The monkey immediately smiled again. He had really changed moods quickly. Ling Han was also a swift and decisive person. He immediately turned around and faced the same direction as the monkey. Then, he knelt down and they kowtowed. Monkey nodded his head slightly as a form of kowtow. "All right, after 9 kowtows, we'll be brothers." The monkey paused and looked at Ling Han. "Brother, what's your name?" This sworn brother was really muddle-headed. He didn't even know his name before deciding to become sworn brothers with him. "Ling Han," Ling Han replied. "Brother, your strength doesn't seem to be much," said Monkey. He frowned, seemingly very frustrated. This was truly a temperamental person. No, a temperamental monkey. He was still being suppressed, but he was already worried for Ling Han. Ling Han nodded. "I just started cultivating." "What cultivation technique did you cultivate?" Monkey asked again. "None." Ling Han shook his head. The monkey revealed a surprised expression. He had completely developed intelligence, so his expression was very rich with emotion. "If you don't have a cultivation technique, could it be that you're using the most primitive method to cultivate?" He looked at Ling Han. Wing, his eyes emitted a bright light as he scanned Ling Han from head to toe. "This has already allowed you to cultivate to the limit. Hiss, brother, you're really extraordinary. Yes, the vitality of your body is very powerful. No wonder it can allow you to cultivate to the limit." Monkey was very happy and grinned. "As expected of Old Sun's brother. You also have as much talent as Old Sun from back then. Brother, come. Old Sun will teach you a cultivation technique. It was stolen by Old Sun before. Unfortunately, when Old Sun obtained it, Old Sun no longer needed it. Now it's all yours," Monkey said. Ling Han's heart trembled. Cultivation technique. He had always suspected that just using fist techniques to cultivate was not the right path. There was indeed a cultivation technique. Ling Han said, "Thank you, Brother Monkey. We're a family, what are you thanking me for?" Monkey boldly opened his mouth, and instantly spat out golden characters that floated towards Ling Han and sank into his forehead. Wang, Ling Han's entire body shook, and ripples appeared in his mind, transforming into ancient words. He didn't recognize these words, but he felt that he could understand them. This was very strange. This had surpassed mere words? Ling Han nodded in his heart. This was a kind of spiritual resonance. After a while, these words disappeared, but Ling Han knew that he had grasped a cultivation technique that was suitable for this world. Unfortunately, it wasn't the time when the sun first rose at the horizon, so he couldn't cultivate. Brother, the origins of this cultivation technique are astonishing. Not only can you not impart it to others, you can't even let others know what cultivation technique you're cultivating. Otherwise, it will bring you great danger, the monkey said seriously. Ling Han was solemn. Although they had just met, he felt that he had already figured out this big brother's temperament straightforward and frank, with the temperament of a monkey. I understand. He nodded solemnly, and then complained. Besides, I don't know the name of this cultivation technique. Pausing for a moment, Ling Han asked, Brother Monkey, can you really escape? Of course, Monkey said proudly. This lousy mountain has suppressed Old Sun for so long. How can it suppress me for the rest of my life? Ling Han did not say anything. He only made a mental note of this matter. Once he became powerful enough, he would come and help this new big brother escape. You can also use this cultivation technique in battle. It will have a miraculous effect. As for the specifics, Old Sun isn't very clear. After all, Old Sun didn't cultivate it back then either, Monkey said seriously. It's said that this cultivation technique is the foundation of a certain supreme heavenly cultivation technique. However, don't underestimate it. Only by having a solid foundation can one rush to the peak. Without Monkey Son causing trouble, Ling Han naturally picked the precious fruit, and he also went to hunt down a goat, washed it, and roasted it before distributing it among the monkeys. After sleeping in the valley for a night, Ling Han woke up early the next morning, and sat down cross-legged, waiting for the sun to rise. Last night, Monkey had given him pointers on the details of his cultivation, helping him understand this cultivation technique thoroughly. Monkey could only express his admiration for Ling Han's strong comprehension ability. The moment the sun rose, Ling Han channeled his cultivation technique, and began to extract the power of heaven and earth, turning it into his own energy. Boom! His body trembled slightly because the amount of energy surging in was astonishing. It was actually 100 times more than when he had been practicing his fizz technique. Previously it had been like the scouring of a small stream, but now it was like a great river surging, and it was a river that was flooding at that. It was truly turbulent. Black filth was seeping out of Ling Han's skin visibly. It was extremely smelly. Half an hour later, Ling Han stopped, a look of disbelief on his face. He had already expanded his second meridian to the limit. He couldn't go any further, or his meridians would explode. This was too exaggerated. Originally, he would need at least half a month to reach the peak of 2 Meridians, but now he had reached it in a day. It stinks. Ling Han gritted his teeth. This time, he had expelled too many impurities, which was comparable to the total amount that he had expelled previously. It couldn't be helped. The improvement this time was simply too great. He hurriedly ran out of the valley to find a water source to rinse himself off. Wherever he passed, monkeys covered their noses and looked at him with disgust. Sigh, he was being looked down upon by the monkeys. Chapter 3108 Ambush. Chapter 3108, 3108 Ambush. 3108 Ambush. Ling Han found a river, washed himself clean from head to toe, and then returned to the valley. Monkey called him over and said, "Old Son will teach you another set of fist techniques so that your battle prowess won't be too weak and damage Old Son's reputation. This is called the demonic monkey fists. It's a branch of the 9 beasts' immortal fists. It's a secret technique inherited through Old Son's bloodline. It's said that if one can fuse the complete 9 beasts' immortal fists, its power would be boundless." Being disdained by this brother monkey, Ling Han was speechless. Moreover, learning monkey fists from a monkey, he felt that it was a little funny. "Focus and calm your mind," the monkey said solemnly. Light shone in its eyes, and it struck out many more symbols that surged into Ling Han's mind. These symbols turned into the form of a monkey, practicing fist techniques in Ling Han's mind with incomparable agility. Unknowingly, Ling Han began to learn as well, and then immersed himself in it. When enlightenment dawned on him, he fell in a trance. He was then told that 4 days had passed. 4 days! So much time had actually passed? He immediately felt an intense hunger in his stomach, and he hurriedly picked some fruits and ate them. Only after eating more than 10 fruits did he feel less hungry. Ling Han stayed here for another 3 days, mainly to ask Monkey about the monkey fists. Although he had basically learned this fist technique, he felt that this fist technique was incomparably profound. He could completely spend his entire life immersing himself in it. If not for the monkey urging him to leave, and Ling Han being worried that son Jianfang would think that Ling Han had gone missing and sent someone to look for him because he had not seen him for a long time, Ling Han would still want to stay here for much longer. On the 8th day after entering the valley, Ling Han finally left. Who was the one who suppressed Brother Monkey? Ling Han thought to himself as he walked. In these 3 days, Monkey only guided Ling Han in cultivation, but did not say anything about himself. Occasionally, he would say something, but he would then immediately change the topic without revealing anything specific. Monkey warned Ling Han not to divulge anything about him to anyone, but if he really encountered any trouble, he could run to the valley to look for him. As long as he was within the range of the valley, any problem would no longer be a problem. Brother Monkey is a person with a story, a monkey. In the past, he seemed to be all-powerful and extremely impressive. Unfortunately, he has been suppressed by someone now. How impressive! The change in heaven and earth started more than 100 years ago. If Brother Monkey was suppressed at that time, how old would he be by now? Although heavenly venerates could easily live for several epochs, that was the time within the Divine Stone. A year here was equivalent to 1,000 epochs within the Divine Stone. Based on this, everyone here was countless times older than Ling Han. The lifespan of humans here was about 120 years. It was mainly due to the development of technology. It could treat many diseases, and offered many supplements that could extend their lifespan. However, after the great change of heaven and earth, when one had stepped onto the path of cultivation, they would rarely fall sick. They could maintain a strong body until they were over 100 years old, but there was no breakthrough in the maximum limit of their lifespan. Some people could live up to 150 years old, but very few of them did. For the majority, their lifespan ended up at around 100 years old. So, Brother Monkey had really lived very long. Ling Han crossed mountains and ridges. Although only 4 days had passed, his speed had become much faster, and the journey was also much easier for him now. In the past 3 days, his cultivation had increased by leaps and bounds, reaching the peak of 3 meridians. Although he hadn't tested his strength, Ling Han estimated that his strength should have reached around 2,000 kilograms. It had to be known that even a peak stage 4 meridians only had around 1,750 kilograms of strength. Ling Han could now be compared to an average middle stage 5 meridians. As he walked, he suddenly felt a wave of killing intent. His invincible power had disappeared, but the sharpness of his divine sense had not. Shua, a person suddenly jumped out from the bushes in front of him. Jianfang. He held a sword in his hand, and his face was filled with malevolence. The gaze he used to look at Ling Han was filled with killing intent. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "Isn't this senior brother Zheng? What, you want to bring me out to play again?" Jianfang almost died of anger. After returning from the casino, he went to Li Changdan to beg him to save his life. However, Li Changdan didn't want to take on so many debts for no reason, and refused to help him pay off his debts. The only solution was to find Ling Han and retrieve those jade seeds. Otherwise, once Jianfang left the ancient Dao sect, he would definitely be eliminated by the casino. Thus, after finding out that Ling Han had left the sect and entered deep into the mountains to train, he had laid an ambush on this path that Ling Han would definitely have to pass through. He had finally spotted Ling Han. Jianfang gritted his teeth and said, "It's all thanks to you that I don't even dare to step out of the sect now." "What are you saying?" Ling Han shook his head. "Ask yourself first. What was the purpose of bringing me to the casino back then? Do you have the right to criticize me? Give me the jade seeds, and I can spare your life." Jianfang shouted. He actually didn't want to kill Ling Han, mainly because he didn't dare, because Ling Han was deeply favored by Sun Jianfang. If Ling Han died, then Sun Jianfang would definitely investigate thoroughly. If Jianfang was found to be responsible, he would definitely be finished. Thus, as long as Ling Han was willing to hand over the jade seeds, and he paid some more jade seeds, he should be able to settle things with the casino. Ling Han shook his head and said, "You shot yourself in the foot, yet you act like a victim. Don't be so disgusting." He strode forward, completely disregarding Jianfang. Jianfang's right hand gripped the hilt of his sword tightly. When Ling Han walked past him, he suddenly turned around and roared, "Ling Han, you forced me to do this!" Shua, he stabbed out with his sword, aiming straight for Ling Han's back. Ding! With a crisp sound, Ling Han drew his sword just in time to block Jianfang's attack. Jianfang instantly felt his hand go numb, as if he couldn't keep his grip on the hilt of his sword. He could not help but be aghast. He was in the middle stage of 4 meridians, and his power was as high as 1,500 kilograms, yet he had actually been struck by Ling Han to the point that the area between his thumb and index finger was aching. How was this possible? "Why you, Could it be that you have some sort of rare treasure? Zheng Tongfeng exclaimed. He knew that Sun Jianfang greatly favored Ling Han, so it was not inconceivable for him to bestow some ancient rare treasure upon Ling Han. Otherwise, he really couldn't imagine how a mere 1 meridian could be so powerful. Heh! Ling Han smiled faintly. He couldn't be bothered to respond to a dead person. A raging killing intent surged in Zheng Tongfeng's heart. He had to obtain the jade seeds from Ling Han, or else he would not be able to pass this hurdle in front of him. Moreover, there seemed to be something extraordinary about Ling Han that made his heart race. He would kill him, rob him, and snatch away his treasure. His eyes were bloodshot. Although he was practicing martial arts, he was only 20 years old, after all. He hadn't even killed many ferocious beasts. Now that he had reached the point where he was about to kill someone, it made his blood boil, and he felt a little dizzy. Die! He brandished his sword, but did not attack head-on. Instead, he began to move and circled around Ling Han. He believed that this rare treasure only increased Ling Han's strength, but it was impossible for his reaction speed to keep up. Thus, once he circled Ling Han a few more times, he would definitely make Ling Han panic, and thus cause him to expose a flaw in his defense. Chapter 3109 Excited. Chapter 3109, 3109 Excited. 3109 Excited. It was just like when a hyena hunted a bison. When it came to head-on confrontation, the hyena would definitely be instantly killed by the bison. However, if the hyena went behind the bison what would it matter if the bison had great power? It would still die. Zheng Tongfeng was full of confidence. Ling Han was that wild bison, while he was the hyena. As long as he could seize an opportunity, his strike would definitely take Ling Han's life. However, when he moved, he was horrified to discover that Ling Han's speed was actually not inferior to his. What? He was stunned. What kind of rare treasure could cause a qualitative change in both a person's strength and speed? Ding, ding, ding! As they clashed repeatedly, Zheng Tongfeng's expression looked like he had seen a ghost. Was the other party really only a 1 meridian? Ling Han gave him the feeling that he was a 5 meridians. He was too powerful. Zheng Tongfeng was completely suppressed. To speak nothing of killing Ling Han, if they continued to fight, he would definitely lose his life. The moment this kind of fear rose up in him, he had lost all his fighting spirit. He had to flee. He thought of this, then turned around, and was about to flee to the sect. Ling Han humphed and said, "Still want to run?" He was not Zheng Tongfeng. He was a man who had experienced countless bloodshed in his life. He took a big stride forward, and the long sword in his hand aimed directly for the other party's back. Zheng Tongfeng didn't even turn his head as he parried with his sword. Ding! His strength was far inferior to Ling Han's, and his sword was instantly diverted by Ling Han's sword, and the latter continued to stab forward. Zheng Tongfeng's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he hurriedly called out, "Junior brother Ling, let's talk things out." "All right," Ling Han said. "Then tell me, who asked you to bring me to the casino?" Zheng Tongfeng didn't respond. He didn't dare to betray Li Changnan. Otherwise, his ending wouldn't be any better. "You're not going to tell me?" Ling Han said with a cold smile. "I don't care anyways." He thrust his sword forward. Pooh! The cold blade pierced through Zheng Tongfeng's body. This weapon was made of earth element iron, and it was incomparably sharp and sturdy. Although Zheng Tongfeng was a 4 meridians cultivator with a power of 1,500 kilograms, his physique was no different from an ordinary person's. Of course, his body wouldn't be able to withstand this strike. Zheng Tongfeng turned his head and stared blankly at Ling Han. Then, he slowly closed his eyes, lowered his head, and took his last breath. Ling Han really didn't care who was plotting against him behind his back. Such a person would definitely jump out again. As long as Ling Han had sufficient strength, then he would kill whoever came, so why would he care who it was? They were just clowns in his eyes. He withdrew his sword, thought for a moment, and dragged Jianfang into the forest in the distance. This way, Jianfang's body might wait months or years to be discovered, or it might even stay there forever. If it were someone else, their legs might have gone soft, and their hands might have trembled at this moment. However, Ling Han had killed decisively all his life. The number of elites and prodigies he had killed was innumerable, so how could he take this to heart? If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If anyone offends me, I'll return the favor tenfold. This was Ling Han's principle, and he had always been someone who adhered to his principles. Sigh, I've clearly accommodated the entire Genesis world. Luck and affinity should all be soaring straight off the charts, so why am I still encountering trouble? Ling Han scratched his head, appearing rather depressed. Could it be that my halo of trouble is the strongest attribute, and can overwhelm everything? That's the only explanation. Ling Han returned to his residence and called Huan Shui over. Then, he handed over 3 alchemical pills. Take them. Young master, what is this? Huan Shui was curious. Oh, Meridian guiding pills, Ling Han said casually. Huan Shui was speechless, and could only open her mouth wide. What? Was this the Meridian guiding pill? Although she wasn't a martial artist, she had grown up in the ancient Tao sect, so she had naturally heard of the Meridian guiding fruit and Meridian guiding pill. This thing was very expensive, especially the Meridian guiding pill, which was even more valuable than the Meridian guiding fruit. It cost more than 100 jade seeds, and 1 jade seed was enough to buy her. Ling Han had actually given her 3 pills in a single stroke. How could she not be dumbfounded? Young master, why you? It took her a long time to come back to her senses, but she was still stammering. Take them. Ling Han nodded and said, Later, I'll teach you the 4 directional fists. After you've mastered it, take an alchemical pill at dawn when the sun rises, and start practicing the fist technique. Thank you, young master. Huan Shui's speech was incoherent. Such a surprise was really going to knock her unconscious. At this moment, she was truly willing to die for Ling Han. In such a chaotic world, what was the most important? Strength. She didn't know if she could step onto the path of martial arts, but at the very least, Ling Han had given her a chance, and if it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't give her such an opportunity. Ling Han taught Huan Shui the 4 directional fists. After mastering that unknown cultivation technique, to say nothing of this simplified version of the 4 directional fists, even the real 4 directional fists would be nothing to him. Of course, the 4 directional fists should still be very useful against enemies. Huan Shui wasn't stupid, and her zeal was also ignited. If she couldn't learn it once, she would practice it a second time and a third time. No matter how sore her hands and feet were, she gritted her teeth and persisted. It was only when Ling Han called for her to stop that she took a break. After spending a few days, Huan Shui finally learned the 4 directional fists. However, she had only learned the stances, and many details were not perfect enough. After another 2 days, she finally mastered the 4 directional fists. A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. If he were able to nurture a maid at 12 meridians, would others get a huge fright from this? He then thought of something else. Right now, his wealth was supported by the Meridian guiding pills, but the raw materials for the Meridian guiding pill were restricted, so he couldn't obtain the pill in large quantities. There are 2 more days before the deadline I agreed on with Sect Master Sunday. Can I get another Meridian guiding fruit? Can I buy the raw materials? It should be very difficult. As long as one doesn't reach the 12 meridians, everyone will keep the Meridian guiding fruit for themselves. There actually is something I can do. Ling Han's eyes lit up. He had thought of a solution. However, he had already used up all the Meridian guiding pills, so he still had to slow down for now. Another 2 days passed, and Ling Han had already widened his 4th meridian to the extreme. He now had 4,000 kilograms of strength, and normally speaking, a peak 4 meridians cultivator would only have 1,750 kilograms of strength. However, the higher one's cultivation level was, the slower one's cultivation would be. This was because the total amount of energy Ling Han absorbed remained unchanged, but the more meridians there were, the harder it would be to widen them. Therefore, he needed more jade seeds to set up a spirit-gathering formation to accelerate his cultivation. There were also precious fruits, which could directly increase one's cultivation. No matter how many there were, he wouldn't mind. As his strength skyrocketed, Ling Han's physique also improved. His muscles became denser, and his bones also became much more robust. Otherwise, if he delivered a punch, then even if it could shatter rocks, his fist would also explode into pieces. He realized that this enhancement came from the precious fruits he had eaten in the Monkey Valley. Those 7 days had really been an eye-opener for him. The monkeys in the valley had extremely powerful physiques, and they wouldn't die even if they fell from a high place. In fact, in order to satisfy their appetites, they had even hunted down a ferocious tiger. They had only dispatched 3 male baboons, but not only had all of them returned safely, but none of them had been injured. The strength of their physique was evident. Chapter 31:10 3110 Trading for Fruits. Chapter 31:10 3110 Trading for Fruits. 3110 Trading for Fruits. Ling Han knew that his strength had increased too quickly, so the toughness of his body could not keep up. Others should not have such a problem. For others, their physique was also slowly becoming stronger at the same time that their cultivation level increased, so there was nothing to worry about. Ling Han went to where Sun Jianfang was. He did not dare to fully display his power, and only said that he had already opened up his second meridian, and was about to expand this meridian to its limit. Of course, Sun Jianfang was overjoyed. After giving him some encouragement, he gave him another meridian guiding fruit. "This is the last meridian guiding fruit," he said. The ancient Tao sect could harvest 10 meridian guiding fruits in a year. Even if he was the sect master, it was impossible for him to give all of them to Ling Han to use. "I understand." Ling Han left. He had already thought of a way to resolve the problem of the meridian guiding fruit. That day, he refined the meridian guiding fruit into alchemical pills and went to the black market. He set up a stall and wrote a few words on the ground. "I have the meridian guiding pill, and am willing to trade for the meridian guiding fruit." When everyone saw this, they immediately surrounded him. Who didn't know that the meridian guiding pill was more effective than the meridian guiding fruit? It was obvious from the price. The market price of the meridian guiding fruit was 100 jade seeds, and the price of the meridian guiding pill exceeded this number. Therefore, who wouldn't want to refine the meridian guiding fruit into alchemical pills? The problem was that no one could do it. Now, seeing Ling Han offer such conditions, others could naturally guess that Ling Han definitely had a way to refine the meridian guiding fruit into alchemical pills. This would allow him to make a huge profit. The key was that they themselves didn't know how to do it. Then, faced with a choice between a meridian guiding pill and a meridian guiding fruit, how would they choose? They would naturally choose the meridian guiding pill. Of course, no one would be foolish enough to bring the meridian guiding fruit here. However, after a short while, people left and came back again to commence a trade of the meridian guiding fruit. "I have a condition," one person said. "I know that you will definitely be able to refine the meridian guiding pill. My condition is that after you refine it, you have to sell me another one." Ling Han thought for a moment, and said, "All right." He had made a fortune, so he didn't mind giving others some benefits. Besides, this didn't break the rule that each person could only buy a single pill. "Brother, brother!" Yang also came. This time, he was wearing a pig-headed mask. It seemed that he had a showman personality. "I also have a meridian guiding fruit here. Take it, but don't forget about me if there are benefits." Ling Han smiled faintly. Yang was definitely more knowledgeable about the ways of the world than the previous one. He had directly sold Ling Han a favor. "All right." Ling Han nodded. He planned to give one to Yang after refining the meridian guiding fruit into alchemical pills. Although he had brought 7 meridian guiding pills, in reality, only 3 people traded with him. With rough calculations, the ancient Dao sect had 10 meridian guiding fruits a year. 3 had been given to Ling Han by son Dao Fang, and 3 more had been traded to Ling Han. That meant that there were only 4 aside from those he had gotten. Perhaps the people with the treasured fruit had yet to receive the news, or perhaps the fruits had already been eaten. Ling Han temporarily closed his stall. In any case, he had 3 more meridian guiding fruits, so he could refine quite a few meridian guiding pills. After returning to his residence, he first went to refine pills. This time, he obtained 23 alchemical pills. His efficiency in refining pills could be said to have improved considerably. Young master! Young master! Ling Han had just entered through the door when he saw Huan Shui welcoming him excitedly. He couldn't help but smile and asked, "What is it? Is the sky about to collapse?" Huan Shui was a little embarrassed that she had lost her composure. However, in the next moment, she became excited again and said, "Young master, I sensed my meridians." "Very good." Ling Han nodded. He had seen this girl's hard work, and he was also very happy. However, Huan Shui's expression immediately darkened, and she said apologetically, "Young master, it's all my fault for being too stupid. I have consumed all 3 meridian guiding pills." Ling Han laughed loudly, waved his hand, and said, "It's fine. Here, I'll give you 3 more pills. You can take them after you've cultivated the level of 1 meridian to the extreme." "Young master." Huan Shui was extremely excited. Even a proud prodigy like Li Changdan could only obtain 1 meridian guiding fruit every 2 years. And what about her? She had already obtained 6 meridian guiding pills in total. Meridian guiding pills were much more precious than meridian guiding fruits. She was extremely moved, and really wanted to give her heart and soul to Ling Han. "Since you've already sensed your meridians, report to the sect. From now on, you can become an official disciple of the sect," Ling Han said in a low voice. In this era, there were very few cultivators who could cultivate, so every one of them was very precious. As long as one could become a cultivator, their status would improve by leaps and bounds. A beauty like Huan Shui could be bought with just 1 jade seed. However, if it was a cultivator, one might need 10 jade seeds just to hire them. The difference was like heaven and earth. Plop! Huan Shui immediately knelt down and kowtowed continuously. "Young master, Huan Shui will follow you for the rest of my life. I can't repay your kindness even if I die 100 times. There was no one in the world who treated her better than Ling Han. Furthermore, Ling Han had never asked for anything. This was what truly made her completely loyal to Ling Han. She made up her mind. No matter what happened, she would always be Ling Han's maid. Ling Han smiled, and didn't force her. He had once been an ultimate elite, so he naturally had a mentality that belonged to an ultimate elite. Since Huan Shui insisted, he naturally wouldn't try to persuade her otherwise. What did this have to do with him? After some thought, he decided to take responsibility since he had decided to nurture this maid. Ling Han gave Huan Shui a spirit-gathering formation, and taught her how to use it. This was very simple. She didn't need any knowledge of formations. She just needed to set up the formation foundations and have enough jade seeds. Huan Shui was naturally moved to tears again. Her tears flowed uncontrollably. There was only one thought in her mind: if Ling Han was in danger, she was willing to take his place. Ling Han did not lack jade seeds for the time being, and he had also refined so many meridian guiding pills. This was enough to trade for a large number of jade seeds, which would support his cultivation for a very long time. He focused his attention on the demonic monkey fists. Every time he practiced this fist technique, he would gain a new appreciation. It was as if its power was limitless. Brother Monkey said that he obtained this from a bloodline inheritance. Then, what kind of great elite had appeared among his ancestors? Ling Han thought to himself. The prerequisite for a bloodline inheritance was that the bloodline had once produced an extremely impressive figure. Only then could it fundamentally affect the bloodline. Before this era, there was a martial arts civilization, but it disappeared for some reason. In that case, Brother Monkey's ancestors must have been from that era. What a pity. Brother Monkey must know a lot about that era. He just doesn't want to tell me. That's true. I'm too weak now. It's not good for me to know some things. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. Huan Shui hurriedly went to open the door. After a while, she led a young man over. Junior Brother Ling! This young man smiled at Ling Han, and then handed over an invitation. In a few days' time, it will be Junior Sister He Miaoyin's 18th birthday, and we'll also celebrate the fact that Junior Sister He has broken through to 6 meridians as well. Junior Brother Ling is specially invited to attend. Chapter 3111 Attending the Banquet. Chapter 3111 Attending the Banquet. 3111 Attending the Banquet. Ling Han accepted the invitation, and the young man revealed a strange smile as he turned to leave. Wait, Ling Han said. After the young man stopped, he asked, How should I address you? The young man turned around with an unhappy expression. I'm your senior brother. When you speak to a senior brother, you should add the word please. Forget it, you've just entered the sect. I won't blame you this time. My surname is Pang, full name Pang Anha. Ling Han ignored him, and only lowered his head to look at the invitation. Fuck. Pang Anha instantly felt like he had thrown a punch into a ball of wool. This disregard made him so angry that he was about to explode. In a fit of anger, he even had the impulse to make a move. However, he recalled how Ling Han was the Lord Sect Master's most favored disciple, so even if anyone wanted to mess with him, how could he possibly jump out and be the first one? Forget it. In any case, Ling Han wouldn't be smug for very long. With a flourish of his sleeves, he left. Huan Shui escorted the guest out. The smile on her face had long disappeared as she glared at Pang Anha. Right now, she wished she had the power to punch this bastard to death. How dared he disrespect her young master? Just you wait, I'll remember this. Ling Han didn't care at all. In the past, there had been plenty of proud prodigies who had put on airs and acted like big shots in front of him, but hadn't all of them been beaten into retards and slaughtered like weak chickens by him? He Miaoyin, the granddaughter of 7th Elder He Guan. No wonder there is such a big fuss over her 18th birthday. He Guan had advanced to 10 meridians 20 years ago, and became the last elder of the ancient Dao sect. His current cultivation level is unknown. Although son Jianfang treats me well, this has also aroused the jealousy of many people. To invite me to a banquet at this time, most of those attending probably don't have good intentions. Forget it, I'll go take a look. There were still 4 days before He Miaoyin's birthday banquet, and Ling Han continued to practice the demonic monkey fists while giving Huan Shui some pointers. Even though Huan Shui's talent wasn't high, her current cultivation didn't require much natural talent either. As long as she could sense her meridians, all that was left for her to do was to work hard. This was especially true for 1 meridian. One only had to achieve 250 kilograms of strength, and Huan Shui wasn't a prodigy, so 250 kilograms of strength was indeed her limit. With the support of the spirit-gathering formation, she had already completed the cultivation of 1 meridian by the 3rd day. After taking the 3 meridian guiding pills, she sensed her 2nd meridian, successfully opened the 2nd meridian, and entered the level of 2 meridians. By the 4th day, she already had 350 kilograms of strength. This was simply shocking. Only Ling Han would be so generous as to spend so many resources on a person with no natural talent. One had to know that 6 meridian guiding pills were enough to produce a 6 meridians. If others were to find out, they would definitely scold Ling Han for being wasteful. He was extravagant to the point of speechlessness. Meanwhile, Ling Han's strength had increased from 400 kg to 5,000 kilograms. This advancement was much faster than Huan Shui's, and he was comparable to a peak stage 6 meridians. And he had only opened up his 5th meridian at this point. He realized that his physique was rapidly becoming stronger. The precious fruits that he had eaten previously should have been completely digested, and no longer had any effect, right? Why was his physique still rapidly improving? It didn't make sense. He thought for a long time, and felt that this was the effect of the unknown cultivation technique. Brother Monkey had said that there were many advantages to it. Enhancing one's physique should be one of them. However, Ling Han could not keep calling it the unknown cultivation technique, right? I'll call it Brother Monkey cultivation technique. Ling Han nodded. If the Empress and the others knew about this, they would definitely say that no matter where this fellow was, he was still as incompetent at naming as ever. Huan Shui, let's go. Seeing that it was getting late, Ling Han beckoned to his little handmaiden. Huan Shui can go too. Huan Shui was excited. With her status, she was not qualified to attend events like banquets, unless it was Ling Han that held a banquet. Then, as a servant, she could attend, but she would also be working. Ling Han nodded. With his protective personality, since Huan Shui was one of his people, she was more noble than anyone else in his eyes. All right, young master. Huan Shui will go change immediately. Huan Shui ran off in a flash. The corners of Ling Han's mouth twitched slightly. As expected, as long as it was a woman, she would love to look beautiful. Wasn't it just going to attend a banquet? Did she need to specially change her clothes? After a while, Huan Shui appeared. She had changed into a clean red dress, and a small white bag was slung over her shoulder. Her face was slightly powdered, making her look even fairer. Her red lips were rosy and bright, and her eyes had somehow grown larger. This makeup, TSK. If Huan Shui could originally be considered a beauty worth 70 marks, then she was now at least a beauty worth 80 marks. This makeup really wasn't wasted on her. Young master. Huan Shui was a little embarrassed to be stared at by her young master. Let's go. Ling Han smiled and took the lead. Huan Shui hurriedly followed behind him. She didn't dare to walk alongside Ling Han, and instead fell a step behind, bearing in mind her position as a maid. However, Ling Han had just stepped out of the door when he stopped. Young master? Ling Han smiled awkwardly. Where does he Miaoying live? Pfft. Huan Shui immediately laughed. This young master was really interesting. She didn't dare to tease him, and quickly pointed the way. The two of them left. The ancient Tao sect was actually very large. Most of the buildings here had appeared after the earthquake. They were products of the previous civilization. However, there were also some that were built now and imitated the ancient style, but because they were too new, they could be clearly distinguished with a glance. After walking for about 20 minutes, they arrived in front of a large courtyard. This was obviously a newly built structure because it was huge. The ancient buildings were all small courtyards, but this one was at least 5 times larger, and the paint on the exterior walls and such was very new. At the door, 2 servants were welcoming guests. They were wearing very strange clothes, with the ends of their clothes resembling a swallow's tail. They also wore a cloth collar. Ling Han learned about the civilization from 100 years ago from the optical computer. Those clothes were called tuxedos, and they were only worn by high-class families when they held banquets. The cloth collars around their necks were called bow ties, and there was another type called ties, which was similar to this, but a long strip of cloth would hang down from it, making it even stranger. There were many guests entering, most of them in pairs. The men were basically dressed in a suit, while the women's clothes were of all kinds and varieties. Some of them even revealed their fair thighs and backs, and even their chests were almost half exposed, which made Ling Han very surprised. The women here were really too open. Ling Han walked over and handed over the invitation. A servant took it, and immediately made a gesture to invite him in. So it's young Master Ling. Please. Ling Han went first, and Huan Shui hurriedly followed, appearing extremely cautious. Although she was already a cultivator, she still couldn't change her mentality of a servant for the moment. Ha ha, what a joke. Someone actually brought a maid over. Immediately, a young man laughed loudly. The female companion beside him also covered her mouth and chuckled, appearing very reserved in her amusement. However, the disdainful gaze she shot at Huan Shui already showed her attitude. Chapter 31:12 Apologize. Chapter 31:12 3112 Apologize. 3112 Apologize. Even if you can't find a partner, there's no need to find a maid, right? Aren't you ashamed to bring her to such an occasion? The young man continued mockingly. His female companion also said, Ugly ducklings are ugly ducklings, after all. They can't change even if they wear the clothes of a princess. Ha! This wasn't the main hall of the banquet, but because it was the peak period of the banquet, there were still quite a few people around. When they heard this, they all burst into laughter. However, because they did not know Ling Han's identity and background, everyone only smiled and watched the show. No one wanted to stand out. Who knew if Ling Han was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Huan Shue's strength had increased, but her mentality was far from being able to keep up with her boost in strength. Faced with such ridicule, her first reaction was that she had embarrassed Ling Han, causing her to lower her head in discomfort. Her feet could not help but retreat, as if as long as she could distance herself from Ling Han, she could draw a clear line between the two of them. Apologize! However, right at this moment, she heard Ling Han shout, and her heart trembled. You want me to apologize? The young man pointed at himself, and couldn't help but laugh. Who do you think you are? Don't you know respect for seniority? He had never seen Ling Han before, so there was only one possibility. Ling Han should be a new disciple. Then, according to the rules of the ancient Tao sect, the first to enter the sect was considered the elder disciple, and the strong were to be respected. Why would he need to care about Ling Han's anger? Moreover, he also wanted to show off in front of his female companion. She was a young lady from a wealthy family in the town. Her family was in the food business. Although she wasn't a cultivator, she was very rich. Marrying her would be of great help to him in the future. Ling Han looked at him, and his gaze was very cold. I'll say it again. Apologize. Haha, let alone once, so what if you repeat it 10,000 times? Do you know who I am, junior brother? He stretched out his hand, wanting to poke Ling Han in the chest. Ling Han reached out, grabbed the other's 5 fingers, and then twisted them. The young man immediately let out a blood-curdling scream. As the saying went, the fingers were connected to the heart, and the pain immediately went straight to his heart. Huan Shui saw this, and couldn't help but tear up again. She was extremely touched. Young master! She said softly, wanting to call out to Ling Han. She was afraid that Ling Han would be at a disadvantage. Ling Han turned his head and smiled at her. Naturally, he would not let it go. How could someone as protective as him watch the people around him just suffer quietly? What are you doing? Hurry up and let go, the young man's female companion hurriedly said. Who would have thought that Ling Han would suddenly make a move? It had to be known that this was not only the ancient Tao sect, but also He Miaoyin's birthday banquet. If they caused trouble here, wouldn't they offend the He family? Ling Han looked towards her and said, Apologize. What? The woman couldn't help but retreat. Although Ling Han's expression wasn't terrifying at all, that cold and emotionless look made her feel a chill rise from the bottom of her heart. Pa! Ling Han slapped her across the face. A streak of blood flew, and the woman was already sent flying by his slap. Her hair was completely messed up, and there was a clear palm print on her left cheek. There was blood at the corner of her mouth. Everyone drew a sharp intake of breath. This lord was truly overbearing. The other party had only mocked him a little, and he already slapped her. Don't you know that this is He Miaoyin's house? Don't you know that today is He Miaoyin's birthday? Apologize! Ling Han continued, his voice cold and emotionless. The woman was about to go crazy. She had suffered such a slap, yet she still had to apologize? Ling Han tugged at the young man. As the young man cried out in pain, he moved closer to the woman and slapped her again. Pa! The slap rang out crisp and loud. Apologize! Ling Han said again. I am sorry! The woman admitted defeat and cried. Not to me, but to her. Ling Han pointed at Huan Shui. The woman's mouth was half open, and her face was filled with unwillingness. He wanted her to apologize to a servant? Then how would she be able to hold her head up again in the future? Pa, the third slap was delivered. The woman finally understood that she had met a god of calamity who did not know what it meant to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. I'm sorry, she said to Huan Shui. Only then did Ling Han stop staring at her, and picked up the young man in his hands. Pa, he first slapped him 3 times and then said, apologize. That young man's face was filled with resentment. After being humiliated by Ling Han like this, he had completely lost his dignity. In the future, could he still hold his head high? Pa! Ling Han didn't care. If the man wouldn't apologize, fine, he would slap him until he did. Ling Han's refusal to talk reason finally made the young man feel fear. He had a feeling that he would be beaten to death. He was depressed. No matter what, he was still a Two Meridians cultivator, but because he had underestimated Ling Han too much, he had actually been taken down before he could even make a single move. This made him unwilling and dissatisfied. I'm sorry. He gritted his teeth. Pa! Ling Han slapped him again, causing the young man's mouth to half open. He felt as if his heart was filled with, didn't I fucking apologize? You dragged on for too long, so I need to add some interest, Ling Han said calmly. Fuck, there was such a thing? The onlookers all thought to themselves that if their strength was inferior to this person's, they absolutely could not become enemies with Ling Han. Otherwise, they would be in dire straits. This guy was truly overbearing. But on the other hand, wasn't it the couple who had asked for it? Did Ling Han offend them? Ling Han shook his right hand, and the young man was thrown out, landing heavily on the ground. The young man got up. He was still a gentleman, so he first checked on his female companion, and asked, Xiao Mei, are you all right? All right? The woman pointed at her face. You call this all right? Zhang Baichuan, are you still a man? Of course, the young man was Zhang Baichuan. His face was ferocious as he gritted his teeth, and said, Xiao Mei, don't worry. I'll definitely avenge you. He turned to face Ling Han, and said balefully, I want to duel with you. Gasp! Gasps rang out all around them. In the sect, everyone would naturally spar with each other to increase their actual combat experience. However, when they were sparring, no one would be ruthless. If they injured or even killed someone, they would definitely have to pay compensation. However, a duel was different. One was responsible for his own life or death. From the moment he opened his mouth, Zhang Baichuan declared his intentions of a duel. It was obvious that he was too angry. Ling Han glanced at him, shook his head, and strode off. You don't dare? Zhang Baichuan roared. You're not worthy, Ling Han said calmly. You! Zhang Baichuan was infuriated. He chased after Ling Han with a quick step, and aimed a punch at the back of Ling Han's head. Ling Han didn't make a move. In fact, his steps didn't change in the slightest. Zhang Baichuan couldn't help but smile. You're so arrogant. Do you really think I won't dare to make a move? Just as he was about to land a solid punch, a fair and tender fist suddenly swung over to meet his fist. Boom! He was instantly knocked back, and he felt his blood boil. Zhang Baichuan focused his gaze, and couldn't help but stare. He saw that behind Ling Han, there was a young girl maintaining her posture of having delivered a punch. It was Huan Shui. Chapter 3111 Attending the Banquet. Chapter 3111 Attending the Banquet. 3111 Attending the Banquet. Ling Han accepted the invitation, and the young man revealed a strange smile as he turned to leave. Wait, Ling Han said. After the young man stopped, he asked, How should I address you? The young man turned around with an unhappy expression. I'm your senior brother. When you speak to a senior brother, you should add the word please. Forget it, you've just entered the sect. I won't blame you this time. My surname is Pang, full name Pang Anha. Ling Han ignored him, and only lowered his head to look at the invitation. Fuck. Pang Anha instantly felt like he had thrown a punch into a ball of wool. This disregard made him so angry that he was about to explode. In a fit of anger, he even had the impulse to make a move. However, He recalled how Ling Han was the Lord Sect Master's most favored disciple, so even if anyone wanted to mess with him, how could he possibly jump out and be the first one? Forget it. In any case, Ling Han wouldn't be smug for very long. With a flourish of his sleeves, he left. Huan Shui escorted the guest out. The smile on her face had long disappeared as she glared at Pang Anha. Right now, she wished she had the power to punch this bastard to death. How dared he disrespect her young master? Just you wait, I'll remember this. Ling Han didn't care at all. In the past, there had been plenty of proud prodigies who had put on airs and acted like big shots in front of him, but hadn't all of them been beaten into retards and slaughtered like weak chickens by him? He Miaoyin, the granddaughter of 7th Elder He Guan. No wonder there is such a big fuss over her 18th birthday. He Guan had advanced to 10 meridians 20 years ago, and became the last elder of the ancient Dao sect. His current cultivation level is unknown. Although son Jianfang treats me well, this has also aroused the jealousy of many people. To invite me to a banquet at this time, most of those attending probably don't have good intentions. Forget it, I'll go take a look. There were still 4 days before He Miaoyin's birthday banquet, and Ling Han continued to practice the demonic monkey fists while giving Huan Shui some pointers. Even though Huan Shui's talent wasn't high, her current cultivation didn't require much natural talent either. As long as she could sense her meridians, all that was left for her to do was to work hard. This was especially true for 1 meridian. One only had to achieve 250 kilograms of strength, and Huan Shui wasn't a prodigy, so 250 kilograms of strength was indeed her limit. With the support of the spirit-gathering formation, she had already completed the cultivation of 1 meridian by the 3rd day. After taking the 3 meridian guiding pills, she sensed her 2nd meridian, successfully opened the 2nd meridian, and entered the level of 2 meridians. By the 4th day, she already had 350 kilograms of strength. This was simply shocking. Only Ling Han would be so generous as to spend so many resources on a person with no natural talent. One had to know that 6 meridian guiding pills were enough to produce a 6 meridians. If others were to find out, they would definitely scold Ling Han for being wasteful. He was extravagant to the point of speechlessness. Meanwhile, Ling Han's strength had increased from 400 kg to 5,000 kilograms. This advancement was much faster than Huan Shui's, and he was comparable to a peak stage 6 meridians. And he had only opened up his 5th meridian at this point. He realized that his physique was rapidly becoming stronger. The precious fruits that he had eaten previously should have been completely digested, and no longer had any effect, right? Why was his physique still rapidly improving? It didn't make sense. He thought for a long time, and felt that this was the effect of the unknown cultivation technique. Brother Monkey had said that there were many advantages to it. Enhancing one's physique should be one of them. However, Ling Han could not keep calling it the unknown cultivation technique, right? I'll call it Brother Monkey cultivation technique. Ling Han nodded. If the Empress and the others knew about this, they would definitely say that no matter where this fellow was, he was still as incompetent at naming as ever. Huan Shui, let's go. That person is Ling Han, right? Someone recognized Ling Han. After all, when Ling Han had appeared back then, many people had gone to see him. This person had jumped out from the divine stone, so who wouldn't be curious about him? Yes, that's him. It's only been a month, but he already seems very impressive. It can't be helped. Don't you know that Lord Sect Master gave him a meridian guiding fruit? It's 2 meridian guiding fruits, okay? It's 3. No wonder he could fight Zhang Baichuan. So he has advanced to 2 meridians. And, as long as one can sense his meridians, 1 month is enough time for him to advance into 2 meridians. Comparisons are really infuriating. I only get 1 meridian guiding fruit every 4 to 5 years. Furthermore, Lord Sect Master actually sent a disciple of 2 meridians to be Ling Han's maid? What favoritism! Everyone sighed with emotion. They naturally did not believe that Huan Shui was a maidservant, but rather that she was some junior sister of the sect that had been sent to protect Ling Han. Huan Shui, come back, Ling Han said. There was really no need to waste time on a nobody like Zhang Baichuan. Huan Shui immediately stopped and retreated to Ling Han's side. "Stretch out your hands," Ling Han said. Huan Shui stretched out her hands, and 3 of her 10 fingers were dislocated. Ling Han pressed her fingers back into position one by one, and cracking sounds rang out. Huan Shui gritted her teeth, and didn't say a word. She only broke out in cold sweat from the pain. Fortunately, they were only dislocated, and everything would be fine once they were pushed back into place. "Let's go." Ling Han strode forward, and Huan Shui hurriedly followed. Seeing the 2 of them disappear around the corner, everyone looked at each other, their hearts palpitating in shock. However, Ling Han's cultivation time is too short. At most, he's only a 3 meridians. That is completely insufficient in the sect. I heard that a few veteran senior brothers and senior sisters want to mess with him this time. He will definitely suffer today. Hee, let's just wait and see the show. Everyone followed him in. As for Zhang Baichuan and Xiaomei, no one cared. This world never sympathized with losers. The victors would take away all attention, and the losers could only lick their own wounds. Ling Han entered the main hall, and saw that it was truly magnificent. From the outside, it looked like an ancient building, but the interior was extremely modern. It was the same style as before the great change that had happened more than 100 years ago. The marble floor tiles were covered with thick carpets, and there was no sound at all when one stepped on them. Oil paintings hung all around on the walls. Most of them were probably fakes because most of the real ones had probably been destroyed in the chaotic era of the past. Unusually, there was a huge photo hanging in the middle of one wall. It was of a young girl. She was quite good-looking, and exuded an incomparably arrogant aura. This was the main lead of today, he meowing. It seemed that this girl was quite narcissistic. The hall was filled with youngsters holding tall wine glasses in their hands and walking back and forth. There were also attendants shuttling through the crowd, holding trays filled with wine glasses in their hands. The guests could take a glass as they walked past. There was music playing, but no musicians could be seen. It was something called a music player. It could store sound and play it at any time. Of course, there was a prerequisite for this electricity. "Junior brother Ling!" Li Changdan appeared. He was tall and slender, and his temperament was outstanding. It was as if he had a halo above his head. No matter where he stood, he was incomparably dazzling, and attracted the attention of countless people. His eyes were sharp, so he quickly spotted Ling Han, and strode over. Like a cluster of stars surrounding the moon, Li Changdan was surrounded by everyone, completely suppressing Ling Han in bearing. Chapter 31:14 Theft. Chapter 31:14 3114 Theft. 3114 Theft. Li Changdan, a proud prodigy. He was only 21 years old, but he had already opened 9 meridians. No one in the ancient Tao sect could surpass such a young person of 9 meridians. This was a man who was born with a halo around him. He was destined to be brilliant and dazzling. If Ling Han hadn't appeared, he would definitely have been made the Tao child and inherited the legacy of the ancient Tao sect. He would have been able to obtain the core inheritance, and reach the peak of existence. Unfortunately, Sun Jianfang had brought back a divine stone which had actually nurtured a person. This had caught Li Changdan off guard, and might have even caused his status as the Tao child to fly away. He was naturally displeased with Ling Han, but he was extremely shrewd. In the ancient Tao sect, who would dare to make a move under Sun Jianfang's nose? Fortunately, Ling Han had only just started, and was still far inferior to him. Li Changdan didn't believe that before Ling Han caught up to him, those elders of the sect would agree to make Ling Han the Tao child. The Tao child would represent the next generation of a sect. Of course, they had to establish the one who was strongest and had the greatest potential as the Tao child. The changes in this world had just begun, and the path to immortality was an endless one. They were only standing at the starting point, and the resources should naturally be spent on the most suitable people, such as Li Changdan. Thus, after learning that Sun Jianfang had given Ling Han 3 Meridian guiding fruits, even with Li Changdan's shrewdness, he still couldn't bear it. As he instructed, the matter of He Miaoyin inviting Ling Han to the banquet happened. Of course, it was so that he could make things difficult for Ling Han. It would be best if he could humiliate Ling Han to the point that the latter could no longer stay in the ancient Tao sect. At the very least, he had to make Ling Han's reputation stink. If that happened, how could he continue to become the Tao child? "Come, junior brother Ling, let me introduce you," Li Changdan said with a smile. He was gentle and refined like a modest gentleman, and people couldn't help but have a favorable impression of him. "This is Rui Yuanliang, senior brother Rui," he said, pointing to a young man beside him. This person was about 24 to 25 years old, and his face was filled with arrogance, as if he did not take Ling Han seriously at all. Ling Han nodded and said, "Senior brother Rui." Rui Yuanliang only snorted softly, and raised his chin slightly as a form of greeting. Ling Han sneered in his heart. "Is it really okay for you to be so arrogant? What's the big deal about you? Senior brother Rui is Elder Qi's son-in-law. His natural talent in martial arts is quite extraordinary, and he's already an elder of 8 meridians now," Li Changdan continued. Rui Yuanliang revealed a reserved smile, and nodded slightly at Li Changdan. Oh, so he was a freeloader that was living off of his wife. What was there to be arrogant about that? "This is Lao Liyan, senior brother Lao," Li Changdan introduced again. Ling Han was too lazy to even nod. These people were all arrogant, and they seemed to be either the descendants or in-laws of the elders. They thought that their status was so very noble, so why should he be bothered to act polite to them? "Humph, how arrogant!" Lao Liyan said in dissatisfaction. These people were all too selfish. Didn't they know who was the one who put on airs first? "This junior brother is really arrogant," another man said. "Don't think that you can be arrogant just because Lord Sect Master dotes on you." Ling Han glanced at him, and asked, "And who are you?" "Tan Gaobua," the man said proudly. "Never heard of you," Ling Han said calmly, and then turned his face away. "You!" Tan Gaobua and the others were furious. No matter how much Sun Jianfang thought highly of Ling Han, the latter had only stepped onto the path of martial arts for less than a month. Naturally, he should maintain absolute respect and modesty in front of these senior brothers. Moreover, they were all the descendants and in-laws of the elders. Just how high was their status? As long as you are not the Tao child, what right do you have to be arrogant in front of us? All right. Li Changdan waved his hand to stop the conflict from intensifying. Junior brother Ling is young and impetuous. Don't blame him. This seemed to be speaking up for Ling Han, but it was actually pointing out his arrogance. It was equivalent to adding fuel to the fire. Ling Han looked at this young prodigy from the ancient Tao sect. He was young, but his shrewdness was truly profound. Tan Gaobua and the others all wore displeased expressions, and their gazes towards Ling Han were filled with disgust. In their eyes, Ling Han was only a lucky person. Because he had been born from the divine stone, he had inexplicably obtained Sun Jianfang's favor. It was too unfair. They looked at each other, and then sneered. They would definitely make a fool of this kid and ruin his reputation. "Junior sister, he has come." Right at this moment, someone spoke, and a woman in red walked out surrounded by 4 beauties. They were all wearing off-shoulder dresses, revealing fair shoulders. One could see their proudly bulging breasts presenting an extremely alluring sight. This couldn't help but cause many men to howl like wolves and cheer with all their might. The woman in red was He Miaoyin, today's female lead. She walked to the middle of the hall, and said a few opening words before announcing the start of the banquet so that everyone could have fun. Ling Han had no interest in paying attention to anyone, and just sat at the side. Huan Shui, on the other hand, was doing her job as a little maid. Once Ling Han gave the word, she would go and bring over Ling Han's favorite food. This made everyone envious. By now, everyone had heard about what had happened. Huan Shui had defeated Zhang Baichuan, who was a 2 Meridians, so she at least had the strength of 2 Meridians. In this era, cultivators were the most precious resource. Regardless of their cultivation level, they were superior in status, yet Huan Shui was actually serving Ling Han like a maidservant, willing to work without complaint. How could this not make people envious? The banquet continued, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. There were no more conflicts, which surprised Ling Han greatly. There was actually no one who came to provoke him. This didn't make sense. He was someone with a halo of trouble. When the banquet was about to end, Miaoyin returned to her room. However, when she appeared again, her pretty face was icy. The door was immediately closed, and the music stopped playing. What's going on? What happened? Everyone was curious and started asking around. After a while, they were all in a commotion. It turned out that Miaoyin's Meridian guiding pill had been stolen. It was said that this Meridian guiding pill was a gift from He Guan to his granddaughter for her birthday in attaining adulthood. Now that it had been stolen, Miaoyin was naturally enraged. Now that the door was closed, the meaning was obvious. The thief was among them. I'm sorry, everyone. We're going to search everyone now. Although everyone was dissatisfied, they couldn't afford to offend the He family. Moreover, they didn't have a guilty conscience, so they naturally didn't mind being searched so they could prove their innocence. Ling Han raised his eyebrows slightly. Could this be a plot against him? When someone walked over and wanted to search him, he didn't object. He just strictly paid attention to whether the other party took the opportunity to frame him. To his surprise, he completed the body search smoothly. Was he thinking too much? Found it. A voice rang out. A woman was standing beside Huan Shui with a bottle in her hand. There was a pill inside. Chapter 31:15 31:15 framed. Chapter 31:15 3115 framed. 3115 framed. Miaoyin had just lost a Meridian guiding pill, and found a bottle which contained an alchemical pill on Huan Shui. Was there such a coincidence in the world? She must be the thief. Ling Han frowned. He naturally believed that the little handmaiden was not a thief. This was an obvious attempt to frame her. He had miscalculated. He didn't expect that he wasn't the target, but rather his maid was. As the saying went, even if you hit a dog, you had to look at the owner first. If he interfered then with evidence, he would only be dragged down into the mud as well. He might even be thought to be the mastermind behind it. And if he did not do anything, then everyone would look down on him. If he could not even save his own subordinate, how could such a person be worthy of becoming the Tao child? *T. Ling Han looked towards Li Changdan. Had this gentle and refined-looking person come up with this idea? Miaoyin came over aggressively and appeared in front of Huan Shui. She raised her hand, and was about to slap her. However, her hand didn't land. It wasn't because she was soft-hearted, but because there was another person in front of Huan Shui. It was Ling Han. "Get lost!" Miaoyin said coldly. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "This is my maid, so it's not your place to discipline her." Everyone exclaimed in their hearts. Was Ling Han really going to go against Miaoyin for the sake of a maid? "How dare you!" Miaoyin sneered. Someone beside her came over and told her Ling Han's identity. She gave an "oh" and said, "So you're Ling Han. No wonder you dare to be impudent in front of me. However, do you think I'm afraid of you?" Her face was full of pride. "Now I wonder if you are the mastermind behind this. Are you the one who ordered this B*TCH to steal what belongs to me? And now that you are trying so hard to protect her, you want to cover up the truth, right?" "I didn't steal it," Huan Shui said anxiously. "Humph, you have been caught red-handed, and you still want to deny it?" Miaoyin glanced at Huan Shui with disdain. "That's right. We've caught you red-handed. How are you going to deny it?" Rui Yuanliang said with a smile. "Sigh, I really didn't expect Junior Brother Ling to be such a person." Lao Lian chimed in, directly targeting Ling Han. Hee. Tan Gaobo merely twitched his lips with a fake smile. Li Changdan revealed a pained expression and said, "Junior Brother Ling, how can you be so foolish? He shook his head and turned to He Miaoying. Junior sister, can you let this matter go on my account? Senior brother will think of a way to give you a Meridian guiding pill. Everyone was in an uproar when they heard this. They felt a strong sense of respect for Li Changdan. Look, this was the real person that they publicly acknowledged as a prodigy of the ancient Tao sect. It clearly had nothing to do with him, yet he had taken on this matter to intercede on Ling Han's behalf. In fact, in order to exonerate Ling Han, he had even taken on the debt of a Meridian guiding pill. One had to know that he was a 9 Meridians, and he needed the Meridian guiding fruit and the Meridian guiding pill the most. If he obtained them, he would definitely consume them himself. But now, he was willing to give them away for the sake of his junior brother who was from the same sect. How could they not admire such generosity and kindness? Senior brotherly! Many people shouted. It was great to have such a senior brother in the sect. In the future, he would definitely be able to become a giant tree that supported the ancient Tao sect and protected them from the storms raging outside. All right, for senior brother Li's sake, I won't pursue this matter any further, He Miaoying said as her beautiful eyes swept over Ling Han and Huan Shui, revealing deep disdain and ridicule. You're really lucky to have senior brother Li to speak up for you. Otherwise, humph. She was still angry. To think that they actually dared to steal from her. Get lost, don't let me see you again. Ling Han smiled faintly. Li Changdan really did things beautifully. Not only did he show off his greatness, but he also gave him a blow at the same time, confirming that Ling Han and Huan Shui had colluded with each other, and their supposed crime of theft. In this way, no matter how much Sun Jianfang liked Ling Han, how could he have the cheek to make him the Tao child? Wouldn't he be afraid of being laughed at if word got out? Wait! Ling Han waved his hand. He had never been the type to allow others to bully him. They wanted to frame him? Didn't they know that he had an attribute of being extremely lucky? You people are really audacious. Ling Han shook his head and pointed at the bottle as he said, This was clearly something I bestowed upon my little handmaiden. When did it become stolen goods? Is this a blatant robbery of what is originally mine? Ah? Everyone was shocked. What was going on? Logically speaking, even if Ling Han didn't accept this favor from Li Changdan, he should still try his best to disassociate himself from this bottle and that alchemical pill. He could even say that he had been framed. However, Ling Han actually said this. This was truly beyond everyone's expectations. Was he courting death? Even Li Changdan didn't expect this. This matter had gone completely out of his control. He felt a sense of unease that things might develop in an unknown direction. However, he immediately shook his head. After Ling Han admitted it, wouldn't that be even more impossible to refute? Humph, I'd like to see how you court death. He Miaoying was furious. This thief stole from her, and still dared to make a false countercharge? You scoundrel, how dare you slander me? Fine. If I don't punish you today, my name won't be He Miaoying, she balefully said. She was already infuriated. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, Since you all say that this is stolen goods, I would like to ask you, how do you prove that this is your alchemical pill? Is there any need to prove it? Everyone shook their head in their hearts. Ling Han's counterattack, or rather excuse, was too weak. Oh, He Miaoying just said that a Meridian guiding pill was stolen, and she found it on your maid. Is there such a coincidence in this world? He Miaoying suppressed her anger, and asked indifferently, Let me ask you, what alchemical pill is this? The Meridian guiding pill, Ling Han said. Since he had been framed, this pill was definitely the Meridian guiding pill. Everyone was stunned for a moment. You even admitted it yourself. What else was there to say? Humph. He Miaoying sneered. She couldn't be bothered to continue speaking. It was a complete waste of time. Everyone looked at Ling Han as if they were looking at a fool. How could such a person become the Tao child? What kind of joke was this? If he were to inherit the position of sect master, they would only be crushed to death by the rolling wheels of the Great Era. Huan Shui, on the other hand, was extremely anxious. If killing herself could help Ling Han resolve this problem, she would give up her life without hesitation. Roalfen dialfes nu omicron viepsilon l omicronem. Ling Han laughed, took out a bottle from his shirt, and said, I have another Meridian guiding pill here. Could it be that you guys are saying that I stole it again? Eh? Why was there another Meridian guiding pill? Ling Han took out another pill bottle and said, If it's not enough, there's still one more. Yes, there's another here too. He took out the third pill bottle. The Meridian guiding pills were too precious, and it was not safe to leave them in his rooms, so Ling Han kept them close. Everyone was dumbfounded. Was this for real? So many of them were all Meridian guiding pills? If these Meridian guiding pills were real, then this matter was really undecided. Chapter 31:16 3116 Tables Turned. Chapter 31:16 3116 Tables Turned. 3116 Tables Turned. What was going on? The maid was clearly caught red-handed, but why did the quantity of stolen goods exceed the quantity that she should have? Humph, just because you say this is a Meridian guiding pill, does that mean it's genuinely a Meridian guiding pill? He Miaoyin asked coldly. Of course. Ling Han appeared extremely confident. Why should I believe you? He Miaoyin said disdainfully. One had to know that this Meridian guiding fruit was something that her grandfather had paid a huge price to obtain. What right did Ling Han, a disciple who had just entered the sect, have to obtain it, and even having obtained 3 of them? Get someone to appraise it, someone said. Everyone nodded in agreement. Getting someone to appraise it would resolve the matter, simple as that. Ask who to appraise? Let me do it! A young man stepped forward. He was quite good-looking, but there was a cunning expression on his face. This voice sounds a little familiar. Brother Nye! Rui Yuanliang, Lao Lian, and the others dare not treat him lightly, and collectively cupped their hands in greeting. Ling Han immediately remembered that this guy was Nye Yang. This guy seemed to have a powerful background, so it was normal for him to be invited to He Miaoyin's birthday banquet today. Nye Yang seemed to have a high status among these second-generation young masters, so when he wanted to be the appraiser, the others were extremely confident of his ability to do so. However, in Ling Han's eyes, no matter how he looked at it, this guy seemed to be quite incompetent and unreliable. Nye Yang uncorked the bottles one by one. After comparing them carefully, he said, Based on my experience, these 4 are all Meridian guiding pills. What? Everyone was shocked. They were all genuine. Wasn't it said that Sun Jianfang had only given Ling Han 3 Meridian guiding fruits? Could it be that there were still other Meridian guiding pills? Ling Han smiled faintly and said, Couldn't I have asked someone to refine it to produce a pill? This explanation was indeed reasonable, but the problem was, when did the ancient Tao sect have a formation alchemist? No, there really is. Yes, a few days ago, a mysterious person was selling Meridian guiding pills in the black market. Moreover, he even traded pills for fruits. Clearly, he must have mastered the refining method of the Meridian guiding pill. Some people immediately spoke up. What? There's really someone selling Meridian guiding pills? Some people weren't aware of this, so they were naturally very surprised. If Ling Han knows this person, then it wouldn't be strange for him to get this person to refine the Meridian guiding fruit into a pill. So long as 1 Meridian guiding fruit was refined, it ought to produce at least 3 or 4 pills, right? Therefore, it wouldn't be surprising that 3 Meridian guiding fruits could produce 4 Meridian guiding pills. Everyone nodded, all of them leaning towards the fact that these Meridian guiding pills were acquired by Ling Han through a trade. By the way, do you know who that woman is? Someone pointed at Huan Shui. Isn't she some junior sister from the sect? Wrong. She's actually a maid. More than a month ago, when I went to Ling Han's place, I saw her with my own eyes. Hey, now that you mention it, I remember too. There is indeed such a maid. Everyone gasped in astonishment. The former maid had now become a Two Meridians elite. What did this mean? Ling Han had to have many Meridian guiding pills in his hands, which directly caused his maid to dash into becoming a Two Meridians. They were about to cry. How extravagant could you be? No matter how many meridian guiding pills you possess, how could you squander them like this? How good would it be for him to give it to them? With their natural talent in martial arts, the same amount of meridian guiding pills would definitely be more effective on them. Therefore, it wouldn't be strange that Huan Shui had a meridian guiding pill on her. It was probably leftovers from what she had been given. I really want to be bestowed with one too. Everyone looked at Ling Han eagerly. If not for the fact that their status as cultivators did not allow them to do so, they would all have the urge to hug Ling Han's thigh and become his lackeys. Li Changdan was speechless. This matter was resolved just like that. As far as he was concerned, there was no solution to this, but Ling Han had taken care of it effortlessly. He naturally knew very well that the meridian guiding pill found on Huan Shui indeed belonged to He Miaoying because it was stolen by Rui Yuanliang and the other two, and the three of them did not hide this matter from him. It was too fucking strange. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "Now surely my little handmaiden's innocence can be proven." He Miaoying had nothing to say. She had heard it just now. Huan Shui was originally a maid, but now she had become a Two Meridians. How many meridian guiding pills would he have to spend to nurture a person with ordinary aptitude into a Two Meridians? Who would believe that such a wealthy person would steal her meridian guiding pill? Even she wouldn't be able to believe it. Ling Han swept his gaze over the crowd. No one said anything else as they all lowered their heads. He then turned his gaze to He Miaoying and said, "Since this is a completely false accusation, then apologize to my maid." He Miaoying was stunned. What? He even wanted her to apologize. What did she do wrong? Her possession had been stolen. Could it be that it was wrong for her to search for what she had lost? Ling Han said, "It's naturally not wrong for you to be looking for lost items, but it's wrong for you to verbally insult someone before you've figured out the situation." He had not forgotten that He Miaoying had previously called Huan Shui B*TCH. Who could be allowed to humiliate his maid? He had to slap her back in retribution of the insult she had hurled at his maid. Only then did He Miaoying remember, and she couldn't help revealing a proud expression. "So what if I wronged her? She's just a servant, can I scold her? I don't care who she was in the past, but now she's my maid. You insulting her is equivalent to insulting me." Ling Han's expression became menacing, and his gaze was sharp as a sword as he stared straight at He Miaoying. "Do you think I'm easy to bully?" Under his gaze, He Miaoying couldn't help but feel a little flustered. Was this really a young man? Why did she feel that the other party was an ancient monster, a terrifying demonic beast that was currently at the peak of its cultivation? It made her feel an extreme chill from the bottom of her heart. A smile appeared on the corners of Ling Han's mouth, and he said, "Junior sister do you not know that the sect has rules? To humiliate a fellow disciple, what kind of serious crime is this?" Over the past few days, he had been tinkering with the optical computer whenever he was free. He already acquired quite an in-depth understanding of this world. Since he was now in the ancient Tao sect, how could he not make himself understand the rules of the sect? He Miaoying was stunned. In the sect, humiliating a fellow disciple was a serious crime. If things were to really escalate, even if she was the granddaughter of an elder, she would still be punished. She would definitely be whipped at the mountain gate. Under her grandfather's protection, she believed that it wouldn't hurt even if she was whipped a few times. However, the problem was, how embarrassing would that be? She quickly calmed herself down and said, "I was not insulting you, it was directed at her." She pointed at Huan Shui. Ling Han nodded and said, "It's good that you admit it." "What did I admit?" He Miaoying was getting a bad feeling. Ling Han said calmly, "According to the rules of the sect, as long as one's meridians could be detected, whether it's in a gardener, servant, or coachman, one will automatically be promoted to become a disciple of the sect. Therefore, in the case of my maid, she is also a disciple of the sect. Since you've admitted to insulting her, do you still want to deny it in front of so many people?" He Miaoying was speechless. For a moment, her heart was filled with panic, and her mind seemed to have gone blank. Apologize. Ling Han raised his voice. This shout was like the roll of thunder. He Miaoying's heart was in a chaotic state. She blurted out, I'm sorry. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.